It's just me trying to sort my Guinness out. I'm only doing this so we can get the link and whack it on the stories anyway. I wonder if Paddy and Brad have notifications on to get in here.
Well, he did ask me earlier, Brad. He was like, are you lot going live again?
You might want to put it up a bit, lad.
Yeah, I was gonna. I don't know why I put it down, because I did lower it.
I just got a notification saying it's live, so we must be.
Don't let them lot in that fucking live.
Yeah, it's funny.
Got about 3 brain cells between them.
I hope you start losing and Brad starts raging.
He starts getting proper angry. Nah, we are live. I'll send you all a link.
Okie dokie.
Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, no.
What's up?
Josh, if you go on desktop on my computer, there's like a graphic that says Man United against Tottenham. It's 9x16. It's got a green bottom. There's 2 of them. Spurs versus United. Yeah, just copy, just drag that over into photos, please. No, not thummy. The little one, the 9x6, the vertical one. Oh, right. Yeah, where's it going? Into photos. Bottom left. Sound. But I'll send you a link to the actual stream anyway, Josh.
Yeah, we've got it, haven't we?
Yeah. Tottenham versus Man United,
What, you wanted to send us like a graphic as well, or?
Yeah, well, you can whack it on your story then, so it actually works if you wanna. You don't have to, of course. Whoa.
Let's get rid of that. Lively.
Yes, winning, boys, winning. Dun, dun, dun. Although I like getting that graphic through. Just let me know. I don't think there will be many people saying stuff in the chat. It'll probably just be the same boys as last week giving us some abuse. But right.
If you see a real life gamer, just ignore it.
Real life gamer, yeah, that's Paddy, innit?
Yeah, get to pub, lads. Right then, let's start it. Let's start off properly with the debate. So, Tottenham against Manchester United today. Tottenham are at home. Quick score predictions from everyone. Simon, go ahead first.
2-2, I reckon. Goals. I think there'll be goals.
2-2. Ellis, what are you saying?
For the sake of the bet as well, I'm going 2-1 Man United.
2-1.
3-1 United.
The United fans going for the big winner. Yeah, do you know what? I think personally, I'm gonna say 2-0 to United.
Ooh,
I don't see Tottenham getting any goals, to be honest. You know, the lack of Kane and stuff. In fact, we've got a little debate about this later on in the show anyway, so should we jump into it now before the game kicks off? So I wanted to chat about how now Tottenham have lost Kane. What do you think realistically their prospects are for the season? Obviously, they drew the opening game of the year. This is quite a big one now, the first time they're playing one of the big 6 clubs. What do you think is going to happen with Tottenham this year?
I think Ange Postecoglou's a good manager.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll probably drag them along with Maddison to maybe 8th. I could see him getting in some sort of European competition.
Just
about. I think they'll be battling it with, maybe Brighton for that 8th spot to get into Europe.
Along with Villa as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think even still with Kane, you look at Spurs at the start of the season and what prospects did they actually have, apart from what they'd hope for battling out for a top 4. But I think the quality of that top half of the table now, and with the loss of Kane, it's just probably going to be even harder for them to try and get that. So,
yeah, do you know? I don't know what to expect from Tottenham, but the answer is pretty much not much. And when I was looking into it, I'm gonna have to get this off my phone because I don't have it laid out in my brain enough. But so they've finished in the top 4 5 out of the last 10 seasons. However, 4 of those top 4 finishes came consecutively under Pochettino from the 15-16 season.
right.
So pretty much since then, since Poch left, that kind of like glory days has ended. And I wondered if really you can attribute a lot of that success to him.
Yeah, I think after the Champions League final against Liverpool in the last set, they've just gone backwards, haven't they?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the other teams have moved forward, like just spending money and stuff like that. So they've got money from Kane, so depends who they get in the rest of the window. There's still a couple of weeks, isn't there? So you never know.
I think they've gone through that typical thing that a lot of teams go through where they've just had a new stadium, but they've got no money. So actually they haven't got the money there to bring in the players when everyone else has. So then they've been able to build and Tottenham haven't. I mean, Poch did get them to a level. Personally, I don't know about Poch. I think he's a good manager, but I don't think he's as good as a lot of people say. Like,
he's not up there with Klopp or Pep. I don't.
No.
Do you not think, given especially what I just said about how much they've dropped off, they got those top 4 finishes every season in a row, got to the Champions League final, and then since he's left, they've only managed to do it once.
But they also didn't win any silverware under him. Not a Carabao Cup, not an FA Cup, like nothing. If they'd have got a couple of pieces in there, you can kind of say, all right, winning the Premier League is tough, winning the Champions League is tough. You can kind of maybe make an argument. The fact that he won nothing in his time there, and he did have Son and he did have Kane, you know, it wasn't as if Tottenham were just some crappy team that he was dragging up. Like,
they're the talent there, definitely. I mean, he didn't do an awful lot with PSG either, did he?
No, I
didn't
suppose.
finish runners up or something.
That was a star-studded squad as well. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that he's a good coach. I mean, you've got to be to manage at this level, obviously, but like, he's not on the same level as you said, the Klopps and the Guardiolas of the league, but not many are, though, are there?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think, I mean, Guardiola's in a league of his own, really, isn't it? But he's also had an unbelievable amount of money to spend. I think maybe Poch's time at Chelsea is going to be a good indicator. Obviously, Chelsea have looked pretty good in the first game of the season, and it's looked like he's really got into the squad, and there's a bit more cohesion there. But it depends if that continues.
I think a lot of young players want to play for him because he develops young players, doesn't he? He did that at Spurs, so I think the young players will flourish under him.
it will be interesting because they have also spent nearly £1 billion. So,
You can always go
you know,
back to that
can you
guy,
say,
True.
you know, their midfield is what, like nearly 300 million?
Mm.
It's going to be difficult to tell whether it's going to. I agree, Poch has seemed to have made it more of a team, but it's going to be hard to see whether this, you know, if Chelsea have some success, whether it's Poch or whether it's just the fact that they've spent a ridiculous amount of money and now they've finally kind of got a very good team.
Yeah. We'll talk about Chelsea's financial fair play stuff a little bit later as well. But I had another point on the Tottenham thing. Because I kind of, when I was researching this topic, I was thinking about it as Tottenham's fall from grace as such. Like, have they really got much worse? And when I was looking into it, in the 22 seasons from when the Premier League was founded, like as the Premier League, as the top division, Spurs only finished in the top 4 twice up till Poch joining.
Right.
That's why I think he had such a big impact on the club. And I think he joined... They came in the top 4 for all those seasons. And then it was the season that they moved into the new stadium that they got to the Champions League final. And then since then, they've not managed to reach that level of like being consistently good at all. But the question here is Spurs being a top 4 club maybe actually a bit out of their league?
Well, it goes back to what was mentioned earlier. The other teams around have just continued to develop well, so they've kind of just been stagnant almost. And especially now, going back to the loss of Kane, it's just you don't... They've brought Maddison in. Richarlison last year for a ridiculous fee, I think, anyway, 60 million.
Yeah.
You've got the teams around you, even if it's not just acquisitions, they're getting better and they seem to be coming together, whereas Spurs just don't really seem to be doing that.
I never saw Spurs as a top 4 team anyway, to be honest.
So, I mean, they had a couple under Harry Redknapp and then did well under Poch. But it's like that was that era. Like, now what? They've
always been, obviously, part of the Big Six, but I never thought of them as a top 4. And like Arsenal have changed it now, they're now in that conversation, but for a long time it was kind of Arsenal and Spurs were in that kind of 5th, 6th kind of, like they were part of the Big Six, but they were never really considered a top 4 until now, where you can say, right, okay, Arsenal have arrived, they're back, you know, they've come full circle now, they're now challenging to be in position to do well, whereas Spurs have never kind of kicked on. But I also think that they never really give managers much time. Obviously they gave Poch a bit of time and he ended up leaving off his own back, but since Poch they've just had a revolving door with managers and they've just, you know, not given any managers kind of any time, and then so they just end up in a situation, and United were very much similar before Ten Hag, where the next manager was left with the shit that 2 managers before him had brought in. So then you're trying to push water up a hill where you've got players that you would never have signed, will never work for you, that were bought for silly fees, and then you're then responsible to get rid of it, build a team, and try and get, you know, top 4 in a matter of 6 months. Otherwise, you'll be out on your ass.
I was going to say, I wonder if it is a bit of an ownership issue as well then, because obviously you saw how Conte left the club. and he was the last person to get top 4 there, and he actually did a decent job overall. Obviously, he had Kane as well, which makes a big difference. But the fact that he didn't even get the backing that he wanted after doing so well in Italy and doing so well at Chelsea.
Look at Mourinho as well. He's won a trophy at every club that he's been at, bar Tottenham. So it does make you think, what else he's got? Didn't Mourinho was he sacked a couple of days before a final?
So, yeah, I think he was. Yeah.
Didn't they got to a final and they got rid of him a couple of days beforehand, or not long beforehand, and that obviously indicates that it's been run not properly.
Yeah, I just think they just need to win a trophy. Just go for the Carabao Cup, just win that, get that monkey off your back, and then just go from there.
Yeah, the difficulty is it's not easy to even win that trophy, is it?
Say, because nowadays, even the likes of City, who are now kind of the big dogs in England, the way that United used to be, a good few years ago. Even Pep starts some of his best players in the Carabao Cup, and he'll, the week of the games, like the Prem game, he'll rest a few players because he knows he's got a cup game midweek. And a lot of the other big teams are starting to do the same, because I think when you've got a team that's so dominant in the Prem, like City, I mean, like we said last week, we've all got City to win the league. And I think everybody with a little bit of common sense is going to say City are the favourites to win the league. So that's when you get the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, United, Chelsea, all going, right, okay, we're probably not going to win the league because we're not on City's level. Let's focus our attention to the FA Cup, to the Carabao Cup, because we can actually come out of this season with a bit of silverware. And I think this whole stigma of the Carabao Cup, I think eventually it's going to fade for as long as City just keep dominating. Because, so my argument for last season being so good for United is that we got top 4 and we won a piece of silverware, and everyone's going to say, oh, you only won the Carabao Cup. But it's still a piece of silverware.
It's a trophy at the end of the day, isn't it?
It's what fans want. It's what we all want. We want to see a day out of Wembley and team lifting a trophy. It's like with the United thing from last season. It's like, kind of felt it was when Liverpool won the treble under Julian in 2001. Like, it was like that first step, winning the trophy, building. That's just basically what it's all about. So.
I'm not sure why people disrespect cup competitions at all.
No, I love them.
Especially as like a Leeds fan, going far in the cup when we were in Championship or League One especially meant a lot, because you were playing teams that you'd never really have a chance to see your team play. Whether I remember going to Arsenal away when I was younger, and it was one of the best games I've ever been to, and loads of teams like that. People got to experience Leeds beating beating Man United at Old Trafford, etc. whoa. But we're underway with the game as well. 30 seconds in, Man United against Tottenham. I don't know. I don't think Tottenham have a chance, but watch, they'll go smoke them now. I didn't even remember to put the free bet on either.
Oh, did you not?
No.
I got a little 75 to...
Oh, I could have ate my words instantly then.
I don't know. I think, speaking as a fan of a Big Six side, I think the reason cup competitions are disrespected, especially the Carabao Cup, is because if you don't win it, it doesn't matter. It's kind of that kind of mentality of, it's a big competition if you win it, but if you don't, it's just a Mickey Mouse Cup.
Yeah. Until you win it, it's not. Yeah,
that's kind of the way that fans look at it. Really, and it's a shame. It shouldn't be, but that's just how it is, I think.
I actually prefer the Carabao Cup to the FA Cup because it's all the matches are at evening. So it's like European, and there's a two-legged semi-final as well.
Yeah,
I think it's just better atmosphere. I think it's better atmosphere than the FA Cup.
Yeah, I'm all here for cup competitions, to be fair. But speaking of which, one of the topics for today was to do an early prediction of the Champions League and Europa League, because it's kind of impossible to say at the minute because the groups haven't been fully worked out. But I kind of wanted to maybe go like final 4 teams and then who you think will be the last 2. Right. So does anyone want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think Europa League. I mean, I fancy Liverpool.
Yeah,
because the final's in Dublin, and that's going to be immense if Liverpool get there. And I think we'll go in as favourites as well. I think, definitely.
Thing is, with Europa League, you've got to wait and see who drops out at Champions League.
Well, that's knowing our luck. Madrid will probably drop out, and then they'll probably knock us out again. And it's just.
I was saying this to Ethan the other day when I was messaging him. I think that's the only way I can see Liverpool not winning is if some ridiculous situation happens in the Champions League where one of those giant teams doesn't make it out of the groups. But even then, I think in order for Liverpool to kind of be knocked off that perch of favourites, it's got to be Madrid, City or Bayern, which unless they're all in the same group.
Or Seville, so probably win it. The Spanish teams always do really well in that competition.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think it's a difficult one with the Europa League because a lot of the time the people you expect to do really well don't end up doing it. I remember a few years ago United dropping out a little bit earlier than expected, and I mean it was the final the other year was Rangers against Frankfurt, was it?
Yeah.
Which is pretty ridiculous, really. It's not two teams you'd predict getting to the final.
Oh, gutted Rangers didn't win that as well, to be honest.
Yeah, that was it. That was a great journey. But what are you saying, Ellis? Are you I think everyone's probably going to go Liverpool, aren't they?
For the Europa League, you'd think so, and it's just obviously it's hard to determine who's going to drop out because I feel for some of the smaller European teams in the Europa League that might look at it and think we could actually piece together a decent run, and then like a European giant just drops out of the Champions League and get to roll the dice again in a different competition. It's a little bit. Tough one to take for them fans, I imagine.
I don't know though, because I mean, like we just mentioned, like
you get to play a big team, I guess.
Rangers and Frankfurt went all the way to the final, who, like you said, are two teams that you wouldn't expect it, and that includes Champions League teams dropping out and other, like Premier League sides going in from being 5th and 6th. So I think, it's still, an interesting one, and it gives the fans a proper away day. I mean, I remember like last year, for example. You had Man United, Barcelona in playoffs of the Europa League. I didn't go, but you just kind of go, bloody hell, like that.
It's incredible.
That's a massive fixture for the Europa League. So
well, I mean, you saw the scenes at the end of last season when West Ham won the Conference League as well.
Yeah, that was great.
I think that's a really good competition to introduce because for those close there from United. Garnacho. Whose shout was that? Was that your shout for best young player of the year?
It wasn't a shout for. I just said he'd be in the conversation.
Right.
Well, he's young, so he is in the conversation.
Can't be good enough to be in the conversation,
I guess.
No, on the Europa League, though, I think there's a few other teams that people are maybe overlooking a little bit. Like you've got Ajax in there, who have done incredibly well in Europe in the last couple of years. Like they've always done well in the Champions League, and obviously, do you remember that mad Spurs game where Spurs managed to bring it back and just get to the final?
Year, didn't they?
Yeah, like Ajax are fantastically good in Europe. And then you've got Sporting. Sporting finished 4th in the Portuguese league. Admittedly, that's not the most amazing finish, but at the same time, they finished 20 points above 5th. So it's like they were still really good.
There's a clear gap between the top 4 and the rest
of
the table.
Brighton in there as well.
Brighton,
of course,
that's a good shout. Yeah.
Do you know, I have them as my flop in the Europa League. I think the extra games and still battling in the Premier League might be a bit much for them because it's like we were saying last week with something like you said with Villa. Now there's those expectations there. I don't know if they can quite live up to it week in, week out.
Because it's almost like people are expecting it.
I don't know though, because I think the difference between Villa and Brighton is that Villa have got money and they spend it, and they're starting to show more and more that they've got that financial ability to go out and spend a lot of money, whereas Brighton don't. They're not going out and spending a shitload of money.
But they always seem to unearth gems.
Exactly.
They're just going about their own business, aren't they? Just quietly. They
do really well, don't they?
I think the problem with Brighton now is going to be the same situation that a lot of small clubs have when they sell one of their best players. So everyone knows that they've got money now. They've just got 115 million for Caicedo. So now anybody that they go out to sign, there's going to be an extra 10, 15 million on top of it because everybody knows, hang on a minute, you just got 150 million from Chelsea.
So they know it's there.
Oh, it's like Liverpool. They're just an extra 10 million on it. Yeah.
I still think that they'll just go and get someone from a random, like a Brazilian league or Argentinian league that they might spend 20 million on instead of 15 million.
End up selling for 100 plus.
Yeah, they'll hope it's another gem. But at some point, surely that run of just unearthing these gems can't continue.
I don't know though, because I mean, you look at other teams like that you've mentioned, like say Ajax, they just have done it for years. Ajax just keep doing it, and they get a lot through the Ajax academy.
But they also their academy, isn't it?
They also bring in a lot of players that you don't think about, and then but like Sebastian Haller, he was one of them. He's there now, and then you've got Benfica just do it consistently. Where they've got Portuguese, but they also get a lot of South Americans over.
You've got to think with Brighton as well. What is it? Graham Potter. Everybody said, well, I did anyway. I don't know about the rest of you. Seemed to think that it was Graham Potter that's banded these players together and done an excellent job with him, which he did. And then when Potter leaves, you think, how is it going to go? Are they going to decline? And they've just carried on ascending.
Oh, yeah.
So there's clearly something
going
on.
They're the best run club in the country.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And I fully agree. When Potter was there, I thought that a lot of the success was due to him.
So did I.
I didn't even doubt it when he left. I was like, right, they're going to get way worse now. It was actually the opposite. He went and did a pretty poor job at a admittedly poorly run Chelsea at the time.
Yeah.
But the success was never due to him. I like that though. I like the fact that Brighton's success hasn't just been bought in a way.
It's more organic, isn't it?
Yeah,
It is
definitely.
Yeah.
Because it was only a couple seasons back. I think it was like a decade ago. They were in the League One even, or the Championship.
Something like that, yeah.
I know they were in the Championship because I remember us playing them a few times.
I think they might have been even lower at some
Yeah,
point
I
as
think
well,
I did a video about it on the channel, but I can't quite remember. I think they were in League One. I know Luton were, and their rise is pretty incredible as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But
They didn't play today, did they? Because their game got cancelled.
The ground's not ready, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Oh, is it?
bizarre, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know
no,
that.
they were due to play Burnley, but it got postponed because their ground's not up to Premier League standard, whatever
Yeah.
that means.
I bet they're getting fined a lot for that.
Probably.
So they had a few. I think they had a few options for in terms of their ground. I can't remember all of them. One of them was like play all the games away at like Fulham, or one of the local London sides. Spend a load of money on refurbishing it or something else. I can't remember what the other one was, but they had like 3 options when they were coming up. So they've obviously gone to refurbish it. I mean, I don't know. I don't really like that, me personally. I mean, I'm not a Luton fan. Never been to Luton. But if you look at the ground, it looks like a ground that has a lot of history.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an old-fashioned English ground, isn't it? That's what it
Definitely.
is.
I don't really like this whole. It's not up to Premier League standards. Like,
It's all safety stuff in it. That's what it is. It's all. That's what it is.
but I mean, it's been safe in League 2, in League 1,
Yeah,
in the
that's true.
Championship.
Yeah, that's true.
So now, when it gets to the Premier League, why is it now all of a sudden deemed unsafe as a stadium? I don't know. I mean, I get they need a bit of refurbishment and this, that, and the other, and I get that. But to be like, nah, it's not up to Premier League standard. You need to go out and spend, a fair few million just to get it up to our standard. Is when last season it was absolutely fine. Nobody said a word about it, and it was just like a bit of a laugh and a joke because they played in somebody's back garden.
Yeah, it is a weird one. I think especially it holds a lot of history, and for those fans to have come up through the leagues in that stadium, I agree. It's like recently the San Siro was going to get knocked down and they cancelled it, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they've made it so it's actually going to stick around. And the San Siro is one of the best stadiums in the world. It's a stadium
It's
that
iconic.
One of the most iconic, definitely.
everyone wants to experience that. And admittedly, it probably needs some work doing, but I don't think it needs a whole new renovation,
No,
or
probably
especially
not.
to knock it down.
Yeah, it would have been sad, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I'm so glad Anfield's just been redeveloped rather than moving to like the.
Hasn't that been delayed as well?
It has, yeah. It's like apparently the contractors, whoever it is, they did something with the Fulham Stadium or doing something, and they've fallen behind by like a couple of years. So I think they've gone into actually administration.
They went
Yeah.
into
So-
administration, yeah.
It's a bit dodgy at the moment, but
All the workers got told to go home the other day.
Yeah, I've seen videos of them just leaving.
That's pretty bad, isn't it?
it is. It's terrible.
There's a lot going on with the stadiums in the Premier League at the minute. You've got Fulham,
Everton's
Anfield,
is behind
Everton's
as well.
is coming along, and there's a few stadiums getting upgraded. You just need Old Trafford to now. It's falling apart, isn't it? It's probably its second worst after Sheffield Wednesday Stadium.
We know a thing or two about a rusty old stadium, don't we?
Yeah, we're there. You don't even get butter on your burger at Ellen Road. There's no sauce. There's nothing.
Jesus.
It's an experience to say the least.
It was just Foster's and Guinness at one point, wasn't it? And now we've got Heineken and Moretti, so we're coming along slowly but surely.
What a day in life. But from the Europa League, let's go on to the Champions League. So who do you think is going to be the final 4 in the Champions League?
I think probably City will be there again.
Mm-hmm.
Madrid. I think Bayern will do well. I do think they'll do well with
Yeah.
Kane. Maybe something like one of the Portuguese teams. Maybe I'm not sure.
I'm going to say Arsenal in there as well.
Do you think Arsenal will get to the last 4?
I honestly think over the last couple of seasons, English teams in Europe have done really quite well. I mean,
they have. Yeah.
all English finals. It's occurred a few times. Obviously, you had Spurs against Liverpool in 2018. You had Arsenal, Chelsea in the Europa League.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed, they
City,
seemed to
Chelsea.
get City, Chelsea, of course, when Chelsea won it. So it seems to be becoming a regular thing for English teams to be in and around it in the final 4. I think Arsenal have built from last season. They were great last year. I know they've got extra games in Europe now, but they've made good acquisitions and they looked decent against Forest in stages, but they're a developing team. I think they'll do quite well.
They'll do well this season, Arsenal again.
I mean, obviously, we're way too early for it because it depends on how people get drawn in the groups and then obviously how things work out.
Yeah.
But personally, like, I think we have to kind of respect Inter a little bit. The fact that they got to the final last year. Yes, they've lost Onana and a couple of other players, but they've all been replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the path. It's like you just mentioned, though. You don't know.
Rashford through there. Rashford, close there.
I'm lucky that's a shot on for Rashford.
United seem to have been on top in this game
Yeah.
to a certain extent. Anyway, what were you saying? Sorry, what were you saying about Inter?
I think they could be in the conversation.
That side of the
I
draw.
think we're in the conversation personally.
Well, you've got to back yourself, haven't you? But you mentioned about you don't know what the path to the final is going to be like, and they had a favourable side last year. All the Italian teams got slapped on the other side at draw with Benfica as well, and you had Bayern Munich, City, Real Madrid on the other side of the draw. So it all just depends how it's drawn.
I thought about this with the Italian league teams doing well. Obviously, I had Inter and AC both reaching the semi-final, and then I looked at the Italian league, and Napoli won the league by 14 points last year. So I thought surely they're in with a chance of getting to that last four. They've still got Osimhen. They haven't really lost any of their big players. And given how well the Italian teams did last year, people count them out a little bit. But by 14 points is quite a lot.
It'll be interesting. I mean, they did lose Kim Min-jae, who is a very high-quality centre-back to Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I don't think they did well in the Champions League last year because they just wanted to put all the focus into winning the league. Now they've won the league, it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward in the Champions League, because they were a lot of people's dark horse team last season, especially after they did a number on Liverpool.
Yeah, they beat us 4-1, was it? Yeah, Napoli, they're tough. They're tough to beat.
I think they'll be an interesting side, so it's not a bad shout, is Napoli, to be fair.
I think they're one of those teams as well that you don't want to play at their ground. You know, a lot of people are saying this with Newcastle, like you don't want to go to St James's Park.
I completely forgot Newcastle were in it.
Crazy.
I know, yeah, it's bizarre that.
Wow.
Man United in the box. Oh, is that Garnacho? Well, United have been on top here. They've been all over them for the last 5-10 minutes. Could be a counter-attack here for Spurs, though. Nah, easy.
I think Newcastle will be an interesting team this year. I don't know. They could either... I mean, they looked very good last weekend against Villa. They could go either way for me, Newcastle. They could build from last season and progress, or they could just completely fall off.
What did you laugh about then?
Tell the cameraman to zoom out a bit, all I can see is Ellis.
Who's that?
I love that.
That's Ethan Mahmood.
Oh, right.
Adam Moat, turn the brightness down because of the shine on Ellis.
No. It's like TikTok all over again,
Yeah.
mate.
Your own boys.
Yeah, everyone's doing you dirty.
You do be your own boys.
Friendly fire.
But talking about the Champions League then, final predictions for the last two. Who do you think are going to be the last two teams in the actual final? I'm personally going City against Bayern. I think Bayern have missed Lewandowski. Before that, they always did really well in the Champions League. Now they've got Kane in there. I think he'll have enough time to bed in because they'll make it through the group stage anyway.
Yeah.
So by the time they're in the knockout stage, Kane should be firing on all cylinders. And then I think they'll make it all the way to the final. And I think City will win again, to be honest.
I don't know. I think City Madrid. City Madrid.
Is that?
Personally, I think the only thing with Kane is that we've seen throughout his career, he's not a big game player. When the lights are shining bright, he's never scored in a final.
Yeah, but I suppose.
How many has he been in?
Yeah, well, how many has he been in?
Yeah, but
In the Champions League, he only came on for like,
he was injured. He wasn't fully fit
15
in that
minutes or
final.
something, and he barely played.
No, he started.
Oh, did he start?
I think he started, yeah.
I know
But
what
he
you
wasn't
mean
fully
about
fit.
big moments,
wasn't fit.
But even like look at the World Cup, like captain Harry Kane from the spot to bring us back level with France, and he missed the penalty.
He did also score one though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I'll back him here. I know it's just.
Oh, I love him in an England
Yeah.
shirt, but I mean, even you go back to 2018, that Croatia semi-final when he just
We should have
squared it to Sterling.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to.
moments like that.
And I'm hoping that being at Bayern, being at a big club, he'll be able to kind of get that monkey off his back. But at the moment, you have to say he's not a big game player. Whereas you look at Madrid and the business they've done. Yes, they've lost Benzema, which is a big loss, and they've not replaced him as of yet. But they've brought in Bellingham. I mean, their team is just ridiculous. The depth they've got in midfield is crazy. I mean, they could have a new midfield every game almost this season. In every game, they'd have a world-class midfield.
Yeah, I think Madrid's strategy of getting in much younger players is clearly going to pan out for them. Like, obviously, they've still got the old heads in, like Modric and Kroos is still there, but then bringing in Bellingham and Camavinga, etc. I think it's going to bode really well because those older players can pass off a lot of that experience that they've got to the younger ones, and then in a few years, the cycle will just continue. If you know what I mean.
I'm glad Bellingham's there. To be completely honest with you, everybody were calling out for him to go to the Premier. It'd been great to see him, but I think looking from an English perspective in terms of the team, to go learn your trades with players like that. Playing for, I don't even really think it's arguable, the biggest club in the world.
Oh yeah, the biggest club.
I just think it'd be great for him. It can bring it into the team.
I also think when you look at England in competitions, one thing we've lacked a little bit is some of those players having experience in different leagues. Like when you look at the France team or the Germany team, there's players dotted about all over, whereas England's always been majority, if probably like 95% Premier League since like Beckham and Owen going to Real Madrid and stuff. When was the last time you saw Kane at the biggest German team and Bellingham at the biggest Spanish team?
There you go.
It's refreshing. Like I say, I think playing on the continent just give you a different dimension, the game better. You learn different tactics, different styles of play, and it can only be good for England. So
100%. Simon, what do you think is going to be the final two in the Champions League?
I agree with you. I think it will be the same. I think it'll be Bayern Munich City.
I think that's a good shout. I'm here for that one. See if I get smoked online for it by Arsenal fans.
Yeah, well, God.
They're Tottenham.
They love me.
I like Arsenal for the reckon. I do like Arsenal.
No, I like Arsenal as a club, but I don't know if...
Not final two.
Yeah, I don't know if... I just think with the amount of games they've got and the added expectation, plus the fact Jesus is probably going to be out half the season again, it's tough to say that they'll make it to even the final four, in my opinion. I think maybe quarters will be where they drop out. Plus, I remember them getting absolutely smoked by Bayern Munich back in the day. Yeah. So I could see something like that happening again.
I think a few teams have been on the receiving end of a bollocking off Bayern Munich, though, aren't they?
They have heavy defeats, Arsenal, don't they, in Champions League? They've always had heavy defeats.
We need Kane to be at Bayern Munich and score 4 goals against Arsenal to knock them out the Champions League. That'd be like the ultimate redemption.
I'd love to see AFTV, mate, after
that.
Oh,
my God.
I hate them lot.
I think that's a strange concept, me. Like some of them lot have gone over to America and stuff now, and it's just the same thing. Like that Troops is in America for AFTV. I think he's at Barstool, or he was for a little bit. But it was just this. It was just him. The rest of them didn't care. They'd all be sat in a room watching the football, and Troops would just be there screaming his head off. And I was like, "What is going on?"
They're so embarrassing. Even Arsenal fans don't like them. Like so many people that I know that are Arsenal fans are like, nah, do you know what? They actually give Arsenal fans such a bad rap. Like you look at someone like that Ty, like he's so delusional and he talks so much shit.
He's committed to the cause, though.
Is he the one who has the beef with Carragher? He's
the one with headphones and
I think him and Jamie Carragher have got history, haven't they?
Yeah, they do. I know what you're on about.
And he waffles so much. Like to him, Arsenal never lose games. Like the ref fucks them over or something like that. It's just crazy. Like United will never beat Arsenal. It's just because like something crazy happened. Like the pre-season, we beat them 2-0, but all he ever wanted to talk about was that Martinez challenge.
That's all that was on his mind. See, I love him. I think I don't actually love him.
Rashford in.
Oh, Rashford with a close chance there. But yeah, every time I see him, he's wearing his full Arsenal kit. He's got Arsenal headphones on, and he's talking about going to watch the women's under-21s match.
He's committed, isn't he?
He loves that club so much. I saw a clip of him the other day, and he was talking about how he only plays with Arsenal on career mode on FIFA, and only buys players that used to be at Arsenal if he's going to buy anyone, and then just uses the academy. Like he refuses to get anyone else.
God,
he's got the most boring career mode going. Corner for United here. Pretty poor one.
What's he doing there? He's another one, Anthony. Like he's a bit inconsistent, but you do see glimpses of a great player. Like that.
There's something there, isn't there?
Definitely.
There's something there, but
that's a ball, by the way.
I think the thing is, though, you can say that.
Give it to him.
Another decent chance for United. Really, should have done better with these chances or like better in the positions to at least create a good chance.
That pass from Onana, to be fair.
That's what you can do, isn't it?
Exactly. Look at that for a ping.
Yeah,
that's 45 yards out from his goal.
From a keeper, that's unbelievable.
Love him.
He loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was saying, I think there's been a lot of wingers that have been brought into the Premier League in the last few years where I think it's like a common trait of a winger. Every now and then you've got that glimmer of pace, you've got that little bit of skill that you're going to beat a player, and that kind of keeps fans' hopes alive. I mean, obviously, Anthony's still pretty young into his Premier League career, but he's
young in general.
There's ones like Pepe at Arsenal. So he cost like 80 million at the time.
Yeah.
I think he was either Premier League record or definitely Arsenal's record.
Is he still there now?
No.
Is he gone?
Is he not technically still their player though?
On loan
Did
somewhere.
he go on loan? I know he was at Nice last year. I didn't know whether he went. He might have gone on loan actually. You could be right with that one. Yeah.
But he cost 80 million. You've got obviously Mudrik's still young into his career as well, but he was near on 100, wasn't he?
Is he a winger? I thought he was a number
Yeah,
10.
no,
He's
a left winger. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a winger as well. You've got Anthony was 80 million. I just think a lot of these players, if this was an out-and-out striker that a team had bought for 80, 90 million, they'd be getting a lot more scrutiny than they are. Whereas you've got players like Luis Diaz who came straight in and started doing really well.
Oh, that was
Must
disgusting. Did he just Rabona that?
Yeah, he did.
He's dirty, Bruno. He was one of my shouts. Well, he was one of the shouts for Player of the Year.
What was it, Bruno with a Rabona cross? I didn't have my
Have
eye
a look
on
at replay on this.
Yeah, onside as well.
That little Travella through ball as well. He's saucing it, and he's got the armband, and he's off on a mad one. Look at this.
Oh.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes.
He was off, yeah. But
Rashford was offside, but should have done better with that shot
it's
anyway.
a brilliant,
to be fair.
brilliant ball.
He's a great player, Fernandes, but I just can't stand him.
He just
Can't stand
he's
him.
got a punchable face, hasn't he?
Oh, God,
Yeah. He's one of them players that you hate when they're not on your team.
Oh,
But if
yeah.
you had a player like that for your team, you just love him. Like Josh goes, I
Yeah.
love him. You would do, wouldn't you? But he just reminds me a bit of a rat.
He's 100% one of those players. Like if he was at Leeds, everyone would absolutely
Yeah,
love
of
it. They'd be like,
course.
oh yeah, he's proper Leeds him. He's proper dirty,
Yeah.
but he's annoying to watch for any other fan. 100%.
He can be annoying to watch as a United fan sometimes.
He threw his toys out when he got beat 7-0. And that's the one thing that did surprise me about the captaincy. Like, you can't really be acting like that
You can't.
when you've got the arm. I know he didn't then, but
Not for Manchester United.
not for Manchester United. He was being a bit of a baby. I mean,
Hit it.
Chance here for United again. Oh, blocked on the edge of the box.
referee, get out of the way.
Tottenham just can't get out, can they?
Yeah, Tottenham have been really pinned in so far this game.
Yeah.
This is what I mean when I said I don't think that they have, other than Maddison, I don't think they have any attacking players who are going to be able to create a goal this game.
Son, obviously, but he's
Anthony
not,
in the
he's not been the
box.
same, has he, recently?
Yeah, I forget about Son because he's been so poor recently.
Oh, God.
He was poor last
Casemiro.
season, wasn't he? He was poor.
I think going back to your point about wingers, I think that a lot of wingers now are coming in from Europe, and I think a lot of them are struggling with that change in physicality from the European league
Decent chance for Tottenham.
to the Prem.
Oh,
Save.
good hands.
Nice save from
Um,
Onana.
You look at like Anthony, for example. He's very slim. He's got a very slim frame, and I think coming from somewhere like Ajax, where you're the top dogs in the Dutch league, bar like every other season, and I think PSV won it last year.
Yeah.
Ajax pretty much dominate the Eredivisie most seasons. Mudryk coming from Shakhtar in Ukraine, who are again probably the best team in the country. I don't watch Ukrainian football too much, but they're the only team that I know about. I think a lot of times they struggle with the change in physicality against some of the fullbacks. I mean, you look at like Liverpool, for example, who've got Robbo at left back, and then you look at some of the other fullbacks in the league.
Got Kyle Walker. Even Wan-Bissaka's come pretty good in that.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw.
Yeah.
And even Kyle Walker, obviously his pace speaks for himself, but even those that aren't blessed with blistering pace, they're just like rats. Like, in the fact that they just make challenges and they get away with the dark arts and that sort of stuff.
The dark arts.
Because a lot of times I think the one-on-one, they kind of are able to get away with it a bit more than other teams.
Good chance here for United again. Garnacho's handball.
Oh,
Too close, that.
Is it? It looked like a pretty obvious one, but it was
look
only
at
a
it.
yard or two away.
it opened up again there, didn't it? Rashford did really well to escape his man.
VAR will have a
Initially.
good look at this.
I missed VAR yesterday.
That's
It's got to be.
That's
hasn't
got to
it?
be a penalty.
It's got to be.
I know it's really close. He probably couldn't have moved it, but the positioning of his arm was
They
up
get
high.
given all day. His hands are like that. They get given all day, every day.
Are VAR even looking at it?
It must be.
This happened last week, didn't it, in the Liverpool game when it should have obviously been a penalty,
yeah.
and it just never got given.
Oh.
It was baffling.
It's just so frustrating as a fan, isn't it?
Yeah, VAR's on this one.
Do you know what it's the inconsistency.
Yeah, he's
of
literally
it.
like that.
It's so I remember last weekend there was the Luton Brighton game, and we touched on it during the game where that dunk one was given, where he was flying into block across. He wasn't even looking. It hit his arm behind his back, and it was given as a handball. And you say, right, that's harsh, but if that's the standard, then that's the standard.
And
But
stick
then
to it.
the very next day, in a completely different game, he's not given.
That's not been
No, it's not
given.
good.
What?
No.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, this is exactly
So
what you're
this is
saying.
what I
though.
mean
Yeah.
is that I like the fact that football's brought in VAR. It's a lot like rugby with TMO.
Mm-hmm.
But in rugby, I don't know how much rugby you guys watch, but the TMO is unbelievable. Like, it's so consistent. Every decision is pretty much the same.
Is it mic'd up as well?
You get spoken for it essentially, don't you? Like you said.
And so rugby have now added. I know we're a football channel, but rugby have now added this new rule where the game will play for 10 minutes whilst they're watching it,
and it could still get pulled back.
Instead of the game stopping,
it don't kill the.
It allows the game to go, and if they deem something's happened, the game's pulled back, and then whatever is decided is given then.
It was, baffling decision that there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you though, Josh. VAR needs to be implemented so much better, because at the minute it's just going to lead to more and more fans getting pissed off.
You want justification, don't you? Like, as you say, mic it up, let's hear the process, and let's hear them discussing it.
In the Women's World Cup, it's all mic'd up, isn't it? I think.
And the referee speaks to the stadium, like they've got the mic'd up out, then they basically say what's happened, speak through it. This is why we're giving it. This is
in the French league as well, I think it's mic'd up as well, I think.
Yeah, it is. I think it is in the Australian league as well. Yeah, but there's no reason they can't do that. They've definitely got the technology. It wouldn't cost much to get a couple of mics. But it's just ridiculous, because decisions like that keep happening week in, week out. And like you said, it's stressful that for some reason it's only in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not like League 2 and the Conference Leagues, but I'd say even down to League 1, there's not really a reason to not have VAR. Most teams, there's some massive clubs in those leagues, and it makes, well, then again, we're saying how crap VAR is, but it makes, you're watching the game, there's clearly some decisions happening that are ruining the game.
Last night.
And there's a way to fix it.
Last night, he scored with his hand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe not the Championship, but I think that not having VAR in like League 1 and League 2 is kind of a good thing, because we typically kind of surround those leagues as you still get away with quite a lot. I don't watch a lot of it, but say for example last season I watched the Wrexham Notts County game.
Oh yeah.
And there was some challenges flying in, and there was all sorts going on, and the ref was giving a foul, but you know, in a Premier League game you'd have seen yellows and reds flying around, but in that there was hardly any cards.
Oh, free flowing in it.
Which I think if you implemented VAR into those leagues, you'd see you'd see less of that, which I think is kind of the grounds of those leagues. I think.
Do you not think though, at the same time, the finals of the playoffs do have VAR, don't they?
I think they do.
So when those teams are playing in those leagues all season, if they then make it to Wembley and get to the final of the playoffs, and near there from Tottenham, another good save from Onana actually.
Yeah,
really good save. But yeah, so if teams in League 1 and League 2 get to the playoff final, they then have VAR, which is kind of like saying, oh, well, now it's a really important game. We'll give you this rule that they haven't had all season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just pretty stupid in itself, isn't it? But it proves that it's probably needed.
Well, the finals are like at Wembley and that out there, and it's already all set up there. But that's why you look at the cup games. You've got Premier League teams going to lower league teams. If you go to their grounds, they're used to playing with VAR, and then obviously it's not there, it's not equipped. So it's one of those things.
But I think that gives a bit of FA Cup magic and Cup magic where...
No, I actually agree with you in many ways.
I don't disagree.
Like, you know, United could go to, I don't know, spitball, Wrexham, for example, in the FA Cup, and a Wrexham player flies in with a little bit of dark arts or a little bit of a dodgy challenge that, you know, with VAR, that they got pulled up for, a foul would have been given, a penalty would have been given, or what. But it gives the lower league teams a chance to kind of... not cheat, but it levels the playing field a little bit, because, you know, even if United were to go down to Wrexham with our second team, you would expect them to go in and win 3-4-0 comfortably. But it kind of, obviously not levels it completely, but it gives Wrexham at least a little bit of an advantage where they can say, right, okay, we can get away with a little bit here, which we wouldn't have been able to get away with if we played at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it definitely means these smaller teams have a little bit more of a chance, a little bit more of an edge over in there. It's kind of calmed down a little bit now in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Spurs are starting to hold the ball a little bit better. They were pinned in for quite a while, weren't they?
Yeah, 100%. What was the Liverpool score in the end?
3-1 it finished.
And McAllister got a straight red?
Yeah, I don't know what for. I was just following it online, but I think it was quite harsh, or I think he was like really gutted to do it, so I don't know exactly what it was.
I think from what I heard, I was listening to it on TalkSport, I think he went in for a challenge and just mistimed it.
Okay.
Right.
So I think it was a fair... I mean, obviously I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but from what they were saying, it was a fair red. It was just an unfortunate circumstance.
Yeah, because he's not a dirty player, is he? So
No malicious intent. It was just a poor timing by the sounds of it.
Well, he's in my fantasy football team, so I'm going to get
minus
points.
That. I nearly put him in, you know, because I made a video about Brighton on the channel, and I picked him as like the best value signing for Liverpool of the summer, because he was Brighton's top scorer last season, did an incredible job there and at the World Cup. And then, what was it, 35, 40 million you paid for him?
It was the release cost was 35, I think,
and then there'll be a couple of add-ons, I'd imagine. But that's such a great price for a Premier League proven.
In today's market, absolutely.
Yeah. I think if we get a proper DM in as well, he'll go further up the pitch, and I think he'll...
A bit more freedom.
Who was the player that Liverpool signed yesterday?
Oh, it was the Japanese international.
Endo.
Yeah. I'd never heard of it from Liverpool. I'd never heard of him, to be honest, but I think he came on as a sub in the second half. So
I was surprised by that one, because Liverpool's general transfer policy over the last few years has not been anyone that's even close to 30, I suppose.
No,
There's been a few that have been
Thiago was the last kind of 30-year-old, but it's always been early 20s, kind of mid-20s kind of thing. But I just think at this moment in time, we just needed to get the numbers in, and we needed... I think we'll sign another younger.
I was going to say, do you think he's the answer?
No.
Is he going to start every game?
Probably not. I think we just need bodies in. That's what Liverpool need. We just need a
little bit of depth.
Yeah, just a defensive midfielder in there, definitely. And I think he'll probably start the next few games. But I think once the window draws to a close, I think we should get someone else in, maybe early 20s.
How do you feel about all the outgoings? Because obviously a lot of these players probably needed to start getting moved on, but it's been like you've lost the spine of the midfield.
We've lost a lot of leaders. So that's the worrying thing with Milner going, Henderson and Fabinho as well, because he's a senior player. It was a bit of a shock because we just didn't have a plan straight away. You kind of think, all right, who can we get in next? But it was just like, they didn't seem to know what they were doing, the transfer committee, which was really, really worrying. And then with the fiasco with Caicedo and all that kind of stuff. So window started off so well with McAllister and Szoboszlai, but it just seems to have hit a wall at the moment. But I do think we will get someone else in. But we're gonna have to pay at least 80 million. Because all the clubs out there
That's
know
the market, and obviously, as you say, you've shown that you've got the funds there to be able to put in a 100 million bid for Caicedo.
I've seen something though that apparently you lot are really finding it hard to nail down a director of football.
Yeah, we've got someone in at the moment, but he's only there for the summer. Window, so which is a bit bizarre. So when that finishes, I don't really know what's going on.
So when you kind of hear that, you kind of start to understand why you've struggled in the last few windows in terms of transfers. Because before last summer, I always thought Liverpool were one of the best run clubs in the world because you were constantly... Fair enough, you had your few big splashes in Van Dijk and Alisson, but other than that, you were consistently bringing players in for below market value, turning them into... I mean, you look at like Sadio Mane and Mo Salah, for example, and even Bobby Firmino. You brought those guys in for fairly cheap for what they've become. Ivan Van Dijk, nobody really saw him as Van Dijk until he signed for Liverpool. No. And I think he took that final next step in his career to become, right, okay, Virgil's here now, this is him. So, and I mean, you brought in Robertson for no money as well. And
8 million, I think it was 8.5 from Hull.
So I think, there's just obviously some backroom issues at Liverpool, which is why you're seeing all this sort of stuff going on at the moment.
I mean, I feel sorry for Klopp at the moment. I mean, he seems to have taken a lot more on within the club, but I think I just think he just needs some help, definitely.
As I said, what happened to the old director of football that got all of these players in?
Michael Edwards, he was brilliant. He was there for like the 4 years or whatever and did some brilliant business, and I think he just moved on. I don't know what he's doing now, quite frankly, but and then we had someone else come in, but he left after 12 months.
Oh my days.
Was he offside?
I think he might have been, but even if he is, that's a bit of an embarrassing effort. Was he off? Let's see. No, he was onside as well.
Onside, yeah.
So a really good chance there for Bruno.
Wow.
Completely skied it as well. That's a couple of good chances for United. I know the Rashford one looked like it was just offside, but...
I know he's not a striker, but fucking head it down.
What's happened to the new signing, the new striker? Is he not fully fit then?
He got injured in Atalanta's pre-season. And I think during his medical for United, they found, I don't really know what it is, some sort of fracture hotspot or something in his back. So they're just being careful with him. So I don't think he'll play every game, or I think he'll play once a week kind of this season just to try and keep him healthy. But it's kind of, there's no real timeline on it. Everywhere that I'm looking, it's like a few weeks. Somebody said like 2 months. Like every week, every kind of outlet is saying a different time frame on it. But it's a bit frustrating, especially with the price tag that he's coming at, like 75, 70
Mm.
million.
Straight away to be injured.
And it was what we needed. You know, obviously we needed a keeper, but if we hadn't have got a keeper when you kept De Gea, you go, right, okay, he's a decent Premier League keeper. If we hadn't have brought Mount in, you go, right, okay, yeah, Eriksen, Casemiro and Bruno, it's an all right midfield. The striker was the one position that we were like, fucking hell, we need.
It's a big one, yeah.
We need somebody.
Definitely.
So it was kind of the most frustrating part, especially because, you know, we've seen enough of it. I think, you know, he has the odd game where he does well, but Rashford's not a striker. He's not a number 9. He's much more comfortable on that left wing, just running against people and cutting in. And he seems to be doing all right today against Spurs in that position. But
I was going to say, would you not want Rashford to have more of an opportunity to play as that number 9, given he was the top scorer last season?
No,
or is that because of playing on the left wing?
It's because of playing
Is that
on the left
booking there
wing.
for Anthony?
It's like kind of...
Yeah.
He was not happy then, was he?
Nope.
It's like kind of turning around to say Sion and saying, right, now that you've kind of, before you brought in Nunes and everyone, and Firmino was on the kind of, let's put Salah in midfield, up front, you'd kind of say, no, he's a right winger, that's where he does his best. Yeah. So, you know, just because he's a top scorer, and I mean, it's a little bit of a different argument because Rashford did start out as a striker and eventually moved out to the left. But I think he's made his home on the left wing and that's where he's comfortable. And you can see that when he's playing. I mean, especially in that Wolves game on Monday, he just looked lost playing through the middle. They just completely kind of killed his game and he wasn't able to get involved.
I was going to say that Wolves game on Monday really wasn't what I expected it to be. I expected United to be much better, and so far this game they've been the better team against the better team as well. Because obviously Wolves are one of the main contenders for relegation.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, Tottenham have not managed to create pretty much a single thing yet throughout this whole. Well, I mean they had that one chance actually, which Anana saved.
I've seen him put 1 or 2 crosses in, and there's just Richarlison there on his own, and the crosses have mainly gone towards the back stick, and there's just nobody there.
You got Bruno and Anthony got booked then as well. Bruno for shouting at the referee, which is not a surprise.
Nope. Should have had him down for Riella. He's a banker, him, mate.
I think I do, to be fair.
That's a good little dink over.
Tottenham in the box. Son's got the ball.
First time.
Oh, Tottenham hit the crossbar.
Wow.
After just saying they've created no chances all game.
They must have heard
Then Tottenham hit the post. Richarlison misses he just missed the ball.
Come off his heel or something.
That looks weird, that, didn't it?
Well, after not doing much all match, Tottenham hit the bar and the post within 30 seconds of each other. That's the problem, though. If United don't capitalise on the chances that Bruno's having, etc., this is it.
You've got to score when you're on top, haven't you? Because the tide can shift.
The first Spurs game at home as well. I really want to go to the Spurs stadium. I personally think it's the best looking stadium in the Premier League.
It's brilliant.
Have you been?
I've not been, but the big grandstand behind one of the goals, I love those. Like Dortmund's got them, then obviously Anfield as well.
It looks incredible, doesn't it? I might go to an NFL match there later in the year.
It's a right strike as well.
Yeah, real close there from Tottenham. Who was it that had that?
Pedro Porro.
Oh, God, that would have been a
4G.
An unfortunate goal to concede that.
Followed by nearly an own goal. And Richarlison nearly got onto the end of that as well.
Look at that. That's one of them goals you concede on pro clubs.
That FIFA goal.
Yeah.
101. Another thing I wanted to chat about today is the Saudi League. I think this is just becoming more and more of a thing. Obviously, there was the huge signing of Neymar this week. And I actually got some details on the Neymar signing that I wanted to go over because I think, you know, he's been consistently one of the best players in the world, hasn't he, for how long now?
I'd agree, but you say consistently. Been at PSG for years, and didn't he only manage like 170 appearances?
Yeah, he's very injury prone, but when he plays, he's still really good. His goals per minute and goals and assist record every season has been impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you saw it in the World Cup with Brazil as well. Like he was the main shining light, wasn't he? A lot of the focus was on him, and in the Brazil squad, there's always a couple of those players like throughout the years, and for him to be that at one World Cup, I think is quite a big deal for him. But in his deal with Saudi Arabia, he's going to get a house with 25 bedrooms, which is pretty ridiculous. I mean, I'd love to get that if anyone from Saudi wants a new football show. A 40 by 10 metre swimming pool and 3 saunas. 5 full-time staff for his house, fully paid, not part of his wage. A Bentley Continental GT, an Aston Martin DBX, and a Lamborghini Hurricane. A 24-hour personal driver whenever he wants it. All bills for paid hotels, restaurants, and various services for his off days. That is all paid by the club. He doesn't have to take that out of his own wage. He gets a private plane at his disposal for any travels he wants to do.
Yeah, seeing that as well.
500,000 euros for each social media post that promotes Saudi Arabia. So I think that was one of the most interesting ones personally, because I've seen this week as well that Newcastle announced there's a few Saudi Arabian national team games that are going to be played at St. James's Park. And that tied with that Neymar deal, to me, really show like a lot of the intent from it's the Saudi investment fund, isn't it? Like the government investment fund is clearly to paint a better image of Saudi Arabia. And I wondered what you boys thought about football being a medium to do that.
I think basically, I think it's just sports washing. I really do.
Yeah.
I do. I think if you're a player wanting or like seeking a move to go to Saudi Arabia, there's only one reason why you're going there. It's money, isn't it? Basically. Will it be a top 10 or top 5 league in a few years' time? I still don't think it will. I still think it'll just be 30 plus players going for a payday. I think that's what it'll be like.
China did it at a point, didn't they? And that obviously fizzled out, but not quite to this scale. Like I do genuinely feel if they carry on going like this, and they're attracting not just people on the last legs. Look at Mahrez, he's gone. And if they keep on attracting players like that, I don't see why it wouldn't be in some of the top leagues. If the top players are there, then it's going to end up being ultimately one of the top leagues. Unfortunately, but it's one of the only jobs in the world where you get scrutiny for taking a bigger paycheck. At the end of the day, these players, I know they've got the career and legacy to think about, but if you got offered a job for more money, are you going to say no to it because you think somebody might think badly of it? You're going to go and get your money, go and earn yours, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. I think the worrying thing for me is not so... I aren't really bothered if it becomes a top 5 league. And to be honest, I think that it actually... Maybe not top 5, but I think it'll get in... Within 4 years, I think it'll be classed as a top 10 league. And I think very quickly, with the amount of players that are moving over there, the prestige of winning games and winning the league over there, maybe not to us who have the Premier League, but maybe to some other football markets, some like the Middle Eastern markets and the Asian markets, it'll actually become a thing. Because when you've got 1 week Ronaldo playing against Benzema, and then the next week you've got Kante playing against Firmino, and it's not just Kante, they're surrounded by pretty decent footballers in those teams. I think that it'll actually become an achievement to win the league.
Yeah.
And that's the point where people will start, younger players will start coming through. It'll be impressive if you go over there and win something.
I think it'll be interesting because they're not just doing it with football, so they are trying to do it with
golf.
Sport.
Yeah.
They've got the Live Golf. I know that they've either bought or put a lot of money into WWE.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do it with sport as a whole, not just football.
World domination.
I think it'll be interesting because they're not just trying to, where you look at like the MLS have tried to do it a little bit, China tried to do it a little bit. They're also offering a lot of people money to go and play in like the lower divisions. Like I think they were offering to pay like $3,000. You'd get a house and a car if you went to play in like their 3rd division or something like that. So they're not just kind of being like, right, okay, let's make Saudi football top heavy as fuck. Just bring in all these players, make the Saudi Premier League division, whatever it's called, as good as it can be, but then as soon as you go behind that, it's absolute garbage. They're trying to get...
So it's clearly a long-term plan there.
Yeah. And I don't know how true it is, but I saw something a few weeks ago where they'd given the league something like 17 billion to spend on transfers over the next like 10 years. So essentially they've just got this bottomless pit of money where they're able to give Neymar this kind of deal, or they're able to offer Mbappe the sort of deal. Because like I think with the whole Neymar deal, what's gone under the radar is the fact that they paid PSG 80 odd million for him.
Yeah, people didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So they've not only paid Neymar the stupid money that they paid him, as well as the bonuses, they've also given PSG a fat paycheck as well. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting, but it's going to sound stupid now, but I can guarantee you now, in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be Saudi teams in the Champions League.
Oh yeah, I could 100% see
well,
that.
they're expanding the FIFA World Club tournament thing.
Yeah,
they have every year, but they're going to expand the 20 teams or something like that. I think.
So that's effectively to get them in there
yeah,
anyway.
I think that's what it's all about. I think all the deals with FIFA and all the South American stuff. It's all one big thing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we've seen the greed from UEFA, etc. Anyway, when it comes to try to create the Super League last year, so it'll be no shock to me when the Saudi teams end up in the Champions League. And I think one important thing to remember when debating this as well is it's very like a lot of people might not know how different it is in terms of like club structure and ownership as in comparison to the Premier League. Like this money that's been invested has literally been invested by the government fund. It's not just like a bunch of different owners that are really interested in Saudi Arabian football. It's the actual Saudi Arabian government, the same government that own Newcastle United, that are setting up friendlies there. So to be honest, like it kind of worries me a little bit.
Well, it is. I mean, it is. In my opinion, it is. It's sports washing. You know, same. You know, and it's disappointing, to be honest. You know, it is. But like I say, I just think with the power, with the money, it wouldn't surprise me if bigger players. Like, I think Salah will probably go there in the next, maybe not next summer, maybe the summer after. So I think they'll attract the players, but I think it'll only be players coming towards the end of careers, I think.
See, I'm not too sure on that because I think a lot of the players that have gone this season, like Neves is pretty young. Everyone expected him to end up at a Big Six Premier League team.
But was that because no one wanted him? No other Big Six? That's the point.
I mean, maybe, but I think it's also due to just the money, to be honest. Like, I think a lot of players will think this is going to sort me out forever. But I had a list. Obviously, a lot of these are getting towards the end of the career or coming, haven't been as good recently. But just a few of the ones that have gone there in the last couple of summers. Obviously, got Ronaldo, who's like the biggest name in the world. But again, in terms of like that sports washing element, he's like one of the most followed people on Instagram in the world. So that's perfect for that. Benzema, who only a year before won the Ballon d'Or, admittedly pretty old now, but still a really good footballer. Neymar, the deal we just spoke about. I don't know if is Mane been confirmed yet that he's gone there?
He's already played games.
No, has he?
Scored,
right, well, you've got Mane as well.
Yeah, he's with Ronaldo, isn't he?
Yeah. But this is that's an incredible
they're
attack
like best
there.
mates now. It's sort of sickening to see.
It's sickening to see. But Mane's moved over there as well. Champions League winner, multiple-time Premier League winner. Firmino, the same thing. Like a legend at Liverpool and won everything there is to win there.
Did you say Sane?
Mane.
Mane.
No, not Sane.
So I thought you said multiple Premier League. You only got one, didn't he?
Mane.
Sane, the one who used to play for City.
Yeah,
not him.
Yeah, he plays for Bayern. That's all.
Yeah. Anyway, Neves as well, who we've mentioned, and then you've got I've got the trio of Chelsea lads there, which is Kante, Koulibaly, and Mendy. I mean, Kante injury prone and hadn't done quite as well at Chelsea when he did play recently, but Koulibaly and Mendy were quite big signings for Chelsea in the last few years that I expected to do better than they did and quickly disappeared.
Took John Terry's 26, didn't he?
No, was it Koulibaly that took that?
Number 26, that was Koulibaly, wasn't he? And he absolutely flopped massively.
He was old though, wasn't he? How old?
He was already like 29, I think, when he went.
On,
But centre backs have a bit more longevity generally over some.
He was
great
for Napoli though. He was at Napoli. He played for. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, he was fantastic there. But all these signings, so on Transfer Market, the football website kind of ranks the market value of leagues, so it adds up like all the players at each club. And I thought it was quite interesting that the Saudi league now sits at 924 million. In terms of like the overall value of the league, and that's spread across 18 teams, which is a lot less than a few of the other top leagues.
Sounds like Chelsea, that.
But that's now higher than the Greek league, which is a pretty established league. I know they don't have loads of superstars. There's a few there, but I'm saying
they've had some big Champions League nights.
They've had some big Champions League nights. Do okay in the Europa League and other competitions. You know,
passionate fans as
most
well.
football fans know about Olympiacos and stuff. AEK Athens, they sell out like 60,000 people a couple of times a year. It's pretty big
won
clubs.
Euros in 2004, didn't they?
And then they're also now ranked higher than the Scottish and Belgian leagues. Again, like Rangers were in the final of the Europa League just a few seasons ago. So when we're talking about that getting into the top 10 leagues debate, with the players they've signed, the league's technically already worth more than leagues of teams where they've got Champions League winning teams, etc.
So, I mean, a question on that. Is that based on what they believe the players are worth or what they've paid for those players?
What they're worth.
Right.
So it's not the transfer fee.
Right, okay. Then, then you've got a fair... Because I was going to say, like...
Yeah, no, it's not what they paid for them.
If they're paying that kind of money, then it's... I mean, I don't know. I mean, the other issue is that they obviously kind of... Sometimes with those bigger name players, they might inflate the prices on somewhere like Transfer Market. Like Ronaldo, for example, they might value him a little higher than actually what he probably is worth. Similar with like Kante and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's interesting. We'll see kind of what comes of it.
I thought the most interesting comparison was it's only now valued at 20 million less than the Eredivisie, the Dutch league, which is like the Eredivisie is legendary. You've got so many clubs there that all football fans know, always do well in Europe, produce some of the best talent in Europe. And it's literally taken one, I know they had Ronaldo before this transfer window, but it's taken one big transfer window for the Saudi league in terms of depth of expensive players to catch up to the Dutch league, which is... I was shocked when I saw that.
You've got to think, what's a couple
this
more
is what I mean,
windows
because
gonna do?
as you said, they've got the backing to continue doing this for multiple seasons.
what
This
I
is
mean.
like the start of it.
So I think it'd be interesting because, I mean, even like, say, the Dutch league, for example, like you look at that league, they don't have many superstars. And even though they're well established and stuff, what they typically do, especially like Ajax, is that they have a very good academies and then have young players that leave early. So actually their market value probably isn't quite what it should be. I mean, you look at someone like Frenkie de Jong and Matthijs de Ligt, for example, that have come out of there in recent times, where when they were at the club, they probably weren't valued. Or even Anthony, a few years ago, nobody will have valued them at 80 million. But now, I'm not saying he's worth that much, but that's what was paid for him.
Well, like stepping stone clubs, though, aren't they, really, in comparison to where the players are going. Well, obviously, they know that these big teams can obviously afford to pay these prices. And at the end of the day, the transfer, the amount is what that player's worth to the club that's selling, I guess. And if they know these lot have money, they're obviously going to try boost it up as much as they can. But if Saudi Arabia come knocking, like we've just been talking about, then clubs could slap major price tags on people. It can get carried away with it, really.
Yeah, 100%. I think it also brings in the question of, like, for me personally anyway, do we want... I feel like Newcastle fans might be triggered by this one because obviously they've done so well under the Saudi ownership. But is that what we want in football, in like some of these Western teams, in terms of they've very clearly made the away kit green and they've got the Saudi national team playing at St James's Park twice. And it's like the example that sets. Like I'm all for the Saudi league doing its thing and doing well. I don't know. I don't like the idea of Newcastle going in that direction.
No, it doesn't sit well with me. I mean, one of the good things about last year with Arsenal, you felt their team and their club, their structure was just more organic. It was more natural. It was a progression. And deep down, I wanted obviously them to win the league if Liverpool weren't going to win it. But it's when Man City win the league or if Newcastle do well, it's just like PSG. It's like they've just won the lottery.
It goes back to that,
the
money, really.
And the fans of those clubs, Man City went through the doldrums, Newcastle as well, and you can say that they deserve it and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I just think if Liverpool ever got taken over by, one of these Middle Eastern clubs owners, it just wouldn't sit right. I think there's a reason why clubs like Arsenal, Man United, and Liverpool aren't taken over because I think the fans wouldn't have it. I just don't think they would. And I think they would make an impact.
So, personally, I completely disagree. So, first of all, with that point about Arsenal, they've spent a shitload of money.
But how did they get that money? They generated it.
Their owner is ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Rich.
Well, yeah.
What's his name? Sam Kroenke. He owns like 3 or 4 teams in the US. He owns like the Denver Nuggets, the LA Rams. He owns a hockey team. So he comes in with a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so they've spent a shitload of money. And then, yes, City have spent a shitload of money as well. But they've now had the Abu Dhabi ownership for a long time now. And you look at Newcastle and the Saudi owners haven't come in and thrown the money about and gone, right, okay, when they first came in, all these Newcastle fans, and they were probably half-hearted about it, but obviously you heard a lot of, we're going to get Mbappe, and they were probably joking around, but they've not gone out and signed superstars, you know what I mean?
No,
they've gone out and they've done seriously good business, and they've brought in, the coach that's done a very good job with the players that they've got. So I don't know. I think the only team that's been taken over by the Middle East and that's gone out and thrown the money about is PSG, where they've gone and given Barca a shitload of money for Neymar and given Monaco a shitload of money for Mbappe, and they've overpaid for a lot of players.
But would you say that's the case when they've come into Newcastle and like Newcastle's attendances might have gone up a little bit, but they sold out most games anyway? And the only reason that the shirt sales have gone up is because of this new ownership. So they haven't generated that money as a club, really. The money, like them signing Tonali and even players like Guimaraes and other players, wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that ownership. Ever. It's not through like Arsenal did it. They upgraded the stadium, the merchandise sale went up. Admittedly, they have also spent a lot now, but the Arsenal period under Wenger where they were playing with Shamak and Arshavin and Bentner and stuff, that was the period where they were getting ready for now when they can spend the money because they've built the club up to this point. Newcastle haven't done any extra building. They've just spent more.
I think with these owners, what it does, it gives the managers and the transfer committee, gives them room to make mistakes. Like with Man City, what did they get? That goalkeeper, was it Bravo from Barcelona?
Claudio Bravo.
And he, one season he was out, right, let's spend another 60 million on this. And it gives that, that margin of error where, other clubs, it would be like, oh, it'd set back a few years, but they can just go, right, let's just get another one. Let's get Kyle Walker, 50 million, bang. And it's just that kind of, it just makes it easier in a way.
It's not as much as a gamble for him, really.
It's not a gamble. It's not a gamble, and it's you could say other fans would be jealous and all that kind of stuff, which it's football fans, are tribal, aren't we? That's what we do. But I just think the overriding aspect of it are just, you're a successful club now, but how did you get there? Man City are the best team in the world, but how did they get there?
No.
And I just. Maybe I'm showing my age, I don't know, but for some fans it just doesn't sit right.
No, well, it's fine for them fans that are experiencing it. They don't look at it like that, but there's always going to be that element of an outside fan that is always going to have that opinion and can say, well, look at how you've done it though. Like it's just always going to go back to that, and it's obviously going to divide opinion massively.
I think, sorry, just with Manchester United, because obviously I'm a Liverpool fan. I hate Man United. But the thing is though, the reason why I suppose you are still one of the biggest clubs in the world is because you've got that success through success on the pitch, through winning, through generating. Was it Edwards under Ferguson? Your managing director.
Ed Woodward.
Yeah, Ed Woodward. No, the one before. during the 90s and 2000s.
Oh, I can't remember now.
But you generated this kind of, selling shirts, putting your badge on, everything, making millions, and that was smart. That was so ahead of the game. And making your millions and billions off that to maintain being one of the biggest clubs and richest clubs in the world. I think that's great. That just shows nous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's and that's why even though Man United are still struggling by their standards, they're still one of the biggest clubs in the world, aren't they?
But I think speaking on United, it always helps that even though we're going through our rough patches, we've always had superstar players. I mean, you look at now, they probably are past their primes, but you've got teams like players like Varane and Casemiro, who are multiple-time Champions League winners. Rashford's becoming a bit of a superstar in his own right. Fernandes has proven his worth. Then you go back a few years, people divided opinions on how he did at United. You had Paul Pogba, who was a massive name in world football. Lukaku. We've had Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and this is during our really shit periods as well. So we've always had superstars. But I think going back to your point about Newcastle and with the Tonali signing, like without the shit going on at AC Milan, he never would have left. So they never would have got him. So I don't think we can put the Tonali signing down to necessarily the Saudi investment more, because obviously he was AC through and through. He wanted to spend his entire career there. The only reason he left is because of their mismanagement and they had to leave. And then so you take Tonali away from that Newcastle team. They've not made any big name signings, but every signing that they've made has proven their worth. You look at Sven Botman, who I don't know how much they paid for him, but he's come in and he's now in the conversation for top 3 centre-back in the league.
He's a good defender.
Nobody really talked about Trippier at Atletico. No. He's come in and now he's, a solid right back in the Premier League, and you'd make arguments for him not to be the best in the league, and this sort of stuff. So they've not come in and signed superstar players, bar Tonali, who's only come because of issues. Even Alexander Isak, I mean, I know they paid a decent wage for
35 mil, wasn't it?
But he's come in and he scored a decent amount of goals for them. But again, nobody was really talking about, he's the next big thing in European football. I don't think, and I think the thing is with someone like Newcastle is, even though they're a big-ish team in England, first of all, nobody wants to live in Newcastle. Let's be honest. They don't.
Well, no, but in terms of like footballers, most want to live in London, don't they?
Exactly. So that's why you've got teams like Arsenal who can always attract decent-sized players, because first of all, London sells itself. Do you know what I mean? And then Arsenal are also a massive club in world football. They're not as big as the likes of United and Liverpool and even Chelsea, I think, in the Premier League. And now, obviously, I'd put City in that conversation. But in terms of historic clubs in England, you'd kind of say the big 3 historic clubs in England are United, Liverpool and Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know, 100%. Chelsea in the last 20 years have put themselves in that conversation. But so Arsenal have that a little bit of a draw as a football club, and then London on top of that is a big draw. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I mean...
But would you say that Newcastle, you know, the players you just named there, like Isaac, obviously even like Callum Wilson, Trippier, I don't think that they would have joined the project unless it was for that Saudi ownership. And they still paid like decent fees. Those players are still on quite high wages.
It's the wages that you can. There's a transfer fee, but then it's the wages. Like Trippier will be on God knows how much.
Yeah.
All the players they've signed, they'll be on huge wages.
Like, I agree that maybe 1 or 2 of them might have joined Newcastle because of the size of the club if they were doing half decent anyway. But I don't think you'd have seen Isaac or Trippier go there unless that they knew that within the next few years there was going to be the opportunity to be played European football.
They've had a plan presented to them.
Oh, yeah, it'll all be played out.
And I think another thing, like, touching on Saudi Arabia, I think it's not just like this sports washing in terms of like trying to make Saudi look good. It's like the human rights stuff over there, and like, even this isn't Saudi Arabia, and I don't want to confuse these two, but it kind of draws me to the World Cup as well, where there was like thousands of people died building the stadiums, and I just think that things like this, like English football has lots wrong with it. There's lots of corruption, etc. It's not perfect, but when there's people dying and when there's like human rights violations and stuff, like if I wanted to go to a game in Saudi Arabia, right, and I was who I was, I'd get beheaded. Like, actually like in jail for many years. So it's those type of things that upset me. And then you're going to have the national team playing in Newcastle, and all the Newcastle fans love it because they've signed some good players. But it's like, where do you?
It just doesn't sit well. It's just not right.
That's one of the big reasons that it doesn't, and you can't really ignore that as much as you want to. And obviously, being a fan, you're going to get behind it, but you put stuff like that to the back of your head, especially when it's benefiting you. Because
imagine if they came and took over Leeds, like one of those countries' investment funds. I'd be like, as a Leeds fan, am I going to stop supporting my club? Or am I going to be really happy that we're going to start making strides forward? But like, at what cost?
Yeah.
You put stuff like that to the back of your mind. If it's benefiting you, that's obviously what a lot of the fans will.
And I don't like bringing things like that into football in general anyway, because that's more like politics. And obviously their country has their rules and does their thing, but I just strongly disagree with
still entitled to an opinion.
But then it's because it is influencing our football, which is why I feel like I can speak on that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I do think it'll be in the top 10 leagues within the next 15 years, 10, 15.
I think it does benefit our football as well, though. I mean, you know, it adds another team that's now extremely competitive.
Yeah, there's that.
Adds Newcastle. So now they've added 2 teams that have made the Premier League extremely competitive in Man City and Newcastle. And I mean, you look at United, I know there's not a lot to talk about it now, but obviously Qatar are very much interested in buying United. And as a United fan, I want that takeover. Mm-hmm. Now, if it could be a case of there's just not as many options. It's either Qatar or Jim Ratcliffe, but as much as I don't mind Ratcliffe, it's because he wants to keep the Glazers around because he can't afford to buy the club outright. Right. So if I'm faced with those 2 options, I would much rather go with the Qatari ownership. They're going to come in, clear the debt, rebuild or renovate Old Trafford, improve Carrington and make United what they were 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And as well, it gets the Glazers out. So, you know, maybe I am looking at this whole conversation a little bit differently because I am in the opinion that I want to be taken over.
Yeah, there's the opportunity for that to happen for you.
By Middle Eastern, you know, investments. But I think, you know, it does make it a little bit more competitive in that now, you know, we've got City and Newcastle who, you know, weren't really competitive before their takeovers and now they are.
Is there something we're missing with the Glazers?
Yeah, I don't get the hate for all the
when everything's going well, you don't hear anything about it. Then as soon as something goes wrong, it's all Glazers out. But Ten Hag's now spent more money this is only the start of his 2nd season than Jurgen Klopp has in his entirety at Liverpool.
So he's been backed majorly.
So obviously it's not not the spends, but what's the underlying issue?
So it's the lack of investment. So it's kind of weird to sell it because, like you say, a lot of people have that outside view of, oh, well, you go out and spend another 200 million every window.
Well,
but that's 200 million that Manchester United as a business generate every year.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You Glazers self-sustaining.
The Glazers also take £100 million in dividends every year of their ownership, that they could have reinvested into a stadium that you've now kind of compared to Sheffield. I know you were half joking, but it is very much.
It's not at the level. If you look at all the other big six stadiums, you've got Tottenham, you've got Arsenal, Anfield's been redeveloped. You've got even like Everton's building a new amazing stadium.
Yeah, it makes sense when you put it like that.
When they're taking out that many dividends, not reinvesting, and then we could talk all day about the Ronaldo interview before he left United. I disagree with the way that he went about it, but actually what he was saying, he was bang on. The fact that the chefs, the equipment, all of this sort of stuff hasn't changed from when he was last at United, went to Madrid, went to Juventus, and then came back to United, and it's still the same stuff. You kind of have to say, well, why? It's because there's no investment there from the Glazers. They're just taking the money out, and the money that's being spent is money that's been generated by Manchester United in shirt sales, ticket sales, TV rights, this, that, and the other. So, that's why people want the Glazers out, is because and let's not have it wrong, like they are the reason we are in £700 million worth of debt, because they used
When did they take over? Was it like 2008, something like that?
Something like that. And it was a leverage buyout, which means that as soon as they bought the club.
1-0 to Tottenham there. A cross across the box that deflected, shot up, and then got put in the back of the net. I couldn't even speak then.
That's why you've got to score when you're on top.
You all right, Josh?
No, fuck this, man. I'm going home.
He's off home. Oh, well, on that note, am I right to grab another beer?
Yeah, of course. Simon, do you want one?
No, I'm good. Thanks. I'm good.
Josh is thinking about it. Andy's driving down. Well, Man United were on top for most of the first half. I don't even think we mentioned that the second half had actually started, but a kind of lucky deflection there to lead to the Tottenham goal. But they had a few chances as well in the first half. So I think the fact that they managed to stay in the game, Fernandes missing a really easy chance, gives them this opportunity.
That header was awful, man.
Who scored that? Who was that?
Is that Sarr? Yeah.
Oh, Sarr.
Did they get? Is that the Watford Sarr?
Yeah, I think. Is it not?
Is it not?
No.
Is it a different one?
Yeah. I think he's gone over to Europe somewhere. I don't know where he's gone now.
He wasn't a bad little player in, was he?
Ismail Assar.
But yeah, after me saying that there's no way Tottenham are going to score this game, they go and do it.
I'm glad someone's got a goal, because we might get a little bit more of an interesting game now.
It's not been the best, has it?
No, it opens it up a little bit, doesn't it? United might have to go chasing.
It's a tough one for Josh. Welcome to the show, people. Welcome to the show. This is what happens.
I did say 3-1.
I'm waiting for the day. We need it like when Man United Liverpool play and have both of you on, and that'll be a spicy one. Simon won't say a word. Rashford with a
looking to get the quick reply.
Yeah, he was nearly there.
Oh dear.
But yeah, I was going to say on the Glazers, I think the weirdest way that I look at it is the fact Man United generates so much money. Right, like it must be more than any. Is it even more than Real Madrid potentially?
Probably. I mean, yeah. Anthony
Anthony threw in the box.
Oh, what?
Manchester United hit the post there with Anthony.
Slag.
This game is livening up.
That's good.
There you go. One goal. Get it going.
I think he was offside there, Son. No? Tottenham on the edge of the box again. End to end.
Oh dear.
Tottenham with a decent chance. Oh, that's a horrible cross.
It's like back to the first half, just whacking it towards the back stick and nobody's there. God,
Damn, I can feel Josh's nerves right now. It's going through the room.
Don't want to.
Fuck's sake.
We've seen Woodwork it a few times this game, haven't we?
Yeah, there's been a fair few actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to my I feel like I'm too concentrated on the game to bring my point up about the Glazers. Tottenham are on the front foot here, surprisingly. Son's got it in the box. Another good chance for Tottenham. Save from an arm.
It could have landed back at Richarlison then. God, just as easy as that could have been 2-0.
Do you think Richarlison will actually get a Premier League goal this season?
I reckon he's going to score, take his top off, and then be offside.
It was so funny last year against with the 4-3 Liverpool at Anfield, where he thought he'd equalise in the last minute, wasn't it? And then Jota went and scored, didn't it? It was hilarious.
My mate Ethan had a bet on when Richarlison came on. He put him on for a year to score and get carded, and he won a decent amount of money because he goes, if he scores, he's definitely going to take his top off because he's just that kind of personality. Isn't he? He's a bit of a rascal.
Every game that happens. What do you think, Josh? It seems like Man United are attracting a lot of these like big personality players. You know, like Anthony's a bit of an angry, moody type of player. Bruno Fernandes a bit of an angry, moody type of player. What's he called at the back? The butcher. Martinez. Bit of an angry kind of, you know, like these players that are really going to get in opposition's heads. Do you think that that's like been a strategy or it's just happened?
I think obviously Fernandes was signed before Ten Hag, but I think it's also a reflection of Ten Hag. He wants
Ajax
players,
connection as well.
He wants players that have, you know, passion and
Bit of tenacity, man.
I know, like from the outside, it can be a bit like, oh, he's just been a fucking idiot. Like, why is he doing that? But actually, as a fan,
That was hospital.
like it's good to see players coming in like Martinez and like Anthony that are playing with serious passion for a club that they've only been at for
Madison.
12 months. So I think it makes a nice change compared to players that we've signed in the past, where, you know, like a Romelu Lukaku, for example, who, you know, the first sign of a bit of shit, and he's just like, fuck this, I'm off.
Got 2 players down. Tottenham 2 players down. Player continues though.
So
Sorry to interrupt, but that made me laugh.
The crowd are throwing big snowballs onto the pitch. I don't know what's going on.
There's a lot going on in this game right now. To be honest, I thought that could have been a penalty a minute ago for Tottenham, but the ref decided not to get it checked.
Was a hospital
Let's see a
pass
replay
from
here,
Bruno.
though. That's a penalty. Is it not? He didn't get. Neither of them touched the ball. He just booted the player.
Well, that's what,
But does
they're coming together. I don't know.
I think it's a tough one, me, because he seems to kick his ankle. It's not just his.
that's a good challenge.
That's a good tackle. It was that Anthony.
But it looked like he might have landed. Obviously, it's not a penalty, but it looks like Maddison might be a little bit hurt there.
Bruno put him in Martinez in that sticky situation with a bit of a silly back pass in his own box with plenty of white shirts around. I mean, sometimes in a modern game, you just got to fucking safety first. Get rid of it.
Definitely.
But teams are that desperate to just keep hold of the ball and put yourself in.
Playing out. And,
It's quite forced sometimes, isn't it?
Do you know, I actually have a bit of a soft spot for Ange at Tottenham. I hope he does well. For some reason, I don't know what it is.
He just seems like a nice lad, like a nice man, doesn't he?
I like Australian people, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is he from Australia?
Yeah.
He is,
But he just seems like down to earth. I hope he does okay there, but he's not really been given the tools to do so yet.
He's had one of his tools taken away.
Yeah. We were saying this last week, though, there isn't really a striking option for them, and you would hope, like Richarlison, he did okay at Everton. I don't think he ever warranted the price tag.
£60 million.
Ridiculous.
It's a big fee. But the thing is with Kane going is there's not a like for like swap out there.
He's literally top 5 strikers in the world, undoubtedly.
Lukaku, is he still available or is he
Well,
gone somewhere?
apparently they were looking at Lukaku actually, but would you want him given what he's done at Chelsea?
Scores goals though, doesn't he? Scores goals.
I don't know, what was his record like at United in the end? Obviously he did well at Everton and West Brom.
He started well. I can't remember exactly the numbers, but his first season for us, he was really good. And I thought, right, here we go. We've got our next number 9. And then since then, he just gradually declined every season.
Bit of a donkey, isn't he?
So when the thing is, he's not really. No, he is. He's not
like
really.
He's just touch. He just seems clumsy.
Yeah, he's a poor man's Drogba,
he's
isn't
not
he?
He's not a football player in the sense that he's not going to pick the ball up and run 30 yards, or he's not got a great touch.
But he can get himself in positions where the ball might fall to him and he can get a goal off.
Like bounce off him and go in or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think he's shot himself in the foot really with the way that he's.
Oh, what a save!
Oh, God, he was shit last week as well.
Varane with a header as well.
I think it was Cass. Yeah.
Oh, was it?
He always scores headers.
It was Casemiro, yeah.
He always gets in positions.
Unreal in the air.
What a save!
Yeah,
who
fantastic
was that keeper?
save.
Who was that keeper?
Well, everyone was slewing him.
He looked dead
keeper.
flappy. He did though, didn't he?
Yeah, everyone was slewing
signed him
him.
this summer for replacement for Lloris.
Who, from which team?
Emporio or something from Italy. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, United haven't really created much other than the first little bit of this game. Why is he holding his face?
Big ginger baby.
Well, don't call me out like that.
Oh yeah. Might have taken a little. Don't tell me that's why he's holding his face. Fair enough.
You got a heel in the face.
It wasn't too bad though. He'll be
It wasn't
fine.
intentional, but he's taken stood still face. I thought he was going down purely because of that little arm. Then I thought there's no way.
What you saying on Wan-Bissaka, Josh? Because when he first came, he got a lot of hate, but then it seems like United fans and his performances have done this, but it seems like he's kind of loved a little bit more there now.
I think he's won over a lot of the fans because of his just his attitude. Like he's not been in like last season, for example, especially the start of last season. He wasn't the starter. Dalot was the starter. You never heard a word out of him complaining. He never asked to leave the club. Nothing like that. He just got on with his job. And then when his time came, he took advantage of it. So as you know, I've always loved him from the moment that we signed him. I've always loved him. He's always lacked a little bit going forwards, and I don't think he'll ever be a Reece James, a Trent, a Trippier, where he's able to deliver a ball on a sixpence or something like that. But his defensive ability, he must be one of the best one-on-one defenders in Europe, if not world football. Like his ability to just kind of almost shut down the opposition's left wing. I mean, you look at like the Carabao Cup final last year. You know, Dalot started and he had a torrid time with St. Maximin. Wan-Bissaka came on at half time, and then St. Maximin almost became irrelevant in the second half. He was just not around because of Wan-Bissaka's influence. And I think for games like that, so personally, I love him, and I'm glad that he's the starter. I would start him over Dalot because, and I've always said this in my opinion, his defensive ability is better than Dalot's attacking ability, if that makes sense. Yeah. So Dalot defensively is nowhere near as good as Wan-Bissaka, but I don't think Dalot's attacking ability is that much clear of Wan-Bissaka's.
Hold on, Fernandes through.
Fernandes with a one-on-one there. Another fantastic save from the Tottenham keeper.
He got down well, didn't he?
Yeah, this Tottenham keeper is had an amazing game.
He looked flappy last week, like what we were saying. He might have been pulled up for offside. He did look dead flappy, but he's made a few great saves.
Yeah, watch the one that's not offside. It'll actually end up going in, and then you'll slew the keeper. But no, I think Wan-Bissaka is in a bit of a tough situation in my head because a lot of people compare him to the other right backs in the league, and I feel like we've got an abundance of good fullbacks, especially English on the right hand side. You've obviously got Kyle Walker, you've got Trent at Liverpool. I know he's starting to move into that more central role now, but he's always played as a fullback. So when you're comparing him to Reece James as well, when he plays, is fantastic. That comparison isn't really fair, and he came into United for a lot of money, but it seems like in the last couple of seasons he started to live up to that.
How much was it? Was it about 50 million?
50 million, yeah, wasn't it?
I thought he was open on the edge of the box then because the camera was in the Man United defender.
Yeah, and another shot from outside the box for Tottenham, who have had a very good second half, but United has still had some good chances to be in the game and failed to capitalise on them.
We're approaching 60th minute. Man United have got a hold of it now. After that goal, it went all over the place.
So we mentioned Poch a little bit earlier, and obviously he's at Chelsea now. I wanted to talk about Chelsea and their signings this summer. Obviously, there's a lot of debate around financial fair play in the Premier League. We were speaking about the amount of revenue that clubs bring in, and obviously Chelsea will certainly be up there in the Premier League. But since Bowley came in, which was only about just over a year ago, I believe now, I think it was like summertime last year, they've spent £900 million on players, which just doesn't seem right. There's something about that doesn't seem right. What do you think about generally the financial fair play rules, and how can we maybe do them a little bit better?
Surely they've got to be sanctioned, but I feel like they kind of know that something's going to happen. They might even temporarily be stopped from signing players. So just get them all in whilst you can. Obviously, they found some sort of loophole, haven't they, with the big length of the contracts and with the payment spread out.
Good chance for Tottenham. Son.
That's a crucial block from Shaw. Crucial. Sorry. It's gonna happen at some point, I believe, because you've got to look at it, and it's just something's just not adding up.
Well, aren't Chelsea under some sort of transfer thing where they have to sell loads of players first, or generate funds first, or something? Is what's going on with that?
So it looks to me, from when I was looking into it, obviously Chelsea have also sold £250 million worth of players this summer. A lot of it is, it's the way that they're playing the books. So a lot of these players that they've let go of, Mendy, Koulibaly, Mount, Ziyech, etc. I don't know if Ziyech has actually gone yet.
Big wages.
But a lot of these are big wage players. Yeah. So what they've gone and done is, other than Nkunku, a lot of the players that they've brought in are younger players who have accepted contracts where they're on less initial wages but with more bonuses. So it plays financial fair play in a different way, because it means that they have to get to the Champions League if those players are to get paid more money, and by the time that happens they're going to be getting the Champions League money, so it kind of ticks along in terms of financial fair play. And they've also, well, the rules for this have actually changed in UEFA now, but they've also spread a lot of the transfer costs out. So they're paying teams in installments of 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Even some of them, which is why the 8-year contracts have been over 5 years to pay the clubs for these players. Tottenham are through here again. It's a Man United goal kick. But yeah, so they're paying these clubs in longer installment periods. But UEFA have just changed the rules on this. So if Chelsea were in the Champions League now, it looks like they'd actually get into a bit of trouble for it. But because they're signing these players at the minute, the Premier League hasn't updated it to match UEFA's. So they can say, we'll pay you over 5 years. The wages will be based on X, Y, and Z. And technically it's okay. But the issue is you're allowed to lose a maximum of 90 million every 3 years, I think. And at the start of last year, Chelsea were in a position, or at the start of this transfer window, where they'd lost 180 million. But I think they might have balanced it a little bit better this year, which is why they've been able to bring in Caicedo and Lavia. It's tough. But the question more from me is, like, obviously they're doing it in a shady way. And, like, should the Premier League be able to quickly change the rules instead of it taking a couple of years?
Well, in an ideal world, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? But it's just...
There's a lot more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, there's too much money in the Premier League. There's too much money in the clubs. And when money's involved, it just takes forever, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? There's too many people to pay. There's too many rules to get passed and all that kind of stuff. So it's just... It's never going to happen. Quite frankly, I don't think it'll ever happen. To be honest, I think it's just too. There's
too much money going around for it to be.
Too many people making too much money.
And I think it might be a bit conspiracy theorist, but I think the Premier League also doesn't want one of their biggest teams coming 12th.
Yeah.
So they could probably change the rules very quickly, but they probably didn't want to do it this year because they knew Chelsea would go out and spend again.
Let them get their affairs in order.
Get them back into the top 4, top 6. And then you say, oh, it was just a blip year. So, that's why I think you don't see other teams getting away with it. Because, A, they obviously don't have the financial power that Chelsea do. But B, I don't think the Premier League wants to have one of their big boys sitting below mid-table.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good look.
And you've seen that with a few teams, obviously Tottenham dropping down as well. I think one really interesting thing for me in terms of the Chelsea FFP is in terms of how financials at clubs work, you can sign players based on like the players that are on your books. So they're worth X amount. So they're classed as a club asset. If they're to be sold, you can gain this much back for them. So from what I read into earlier, Chelsea have taken a really big risk on a lot of these players, like Enzo and Caicedo coming in for over 100 million. Obviously, Lavia for 50-something million as well, and Kunku's still relatively young. So the article that I read was effectively saying it's really difficult for you to predict how it's going to go, because as long as those players' market value holds up and they continue to get better and they're classed as a valuable club asset, it won't change. Like Chelsea will still be able to continue doing this because they've got that backdrop of, well, the club's worth this much. If we ever need to get the money back, we can for these players. But the risk is, if some of those players don't get as good as they think they will, or they even drop off, if Caicedo has 2 bad seasons and he goes from being worth 100 million to 20 million, which is very possible, we see it with players all the time, they're going to be in a real sticky situation.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's going to be interesting because also you look at somebody like Mudryk, for example, who they signed for 80 to 100 million. If he doesn't work out and then they decide to sell him, they then have to pay Shakhtar all the money that's outstanding. So in 2 years' time, they might go, do you know what, this kid just isn't up to it. He cannot play for Chelsea. He's not good enough. We need to sell him. Well, they're not going to sell him for 80 million. They might get 40 million back for him or something like that. They've only paid 20 million off. So they now have to find an extra 40 million to pay off. And then I think that's when they could find themselves in trouble. So like you say, they've kind of gambled and they need to ensure that all of these gambles actually pay off. Otherwise, I think that's when they're going to be like, oh shit, yeah, we fucked it here. Which I think is why you don't see other teams doing it, because I think it's just too much of a gamble to take, especially when, they're not going out and doing it with somebody like Mbappe, who's a proven player. They're doing it with young players that aren't really proven.
So
they have had like 1 or 2 good seasons, yeah.
And they've got, like Ellis just said, like they've got the potential. They've shown flashes of being, these top players, but they've not done it to a point where you go, yeah, do you know what? That's a safe gamble. It's a safe bet to make. It's It's like, I mean, you look at Enzo Fernandez, for example. I didn't watch him much when he was over in Portugal, but realistically, he was signed for that much because he had a good World Cup.
Yeah.
A similar sort of situation with Caicedo, where he had a good World Cup and one good season for Brighton last year. So now he's going for 115 million. Like it's a lot of money for players that haven't really done it that consistently.
Yeah, where's he from?
Caicedo,
Yeah.
Ecuador,
Yeah. But yeah, I think another thing to keep in mind as well, and this is something that I think most people know about Chelsea and how they've kind of set up in the last few years, is the academy. Like, they've brought through, in terms of how financials work at a club, because Mason Mount has come through the academy. Obviously, he was on relatively big wages there, but not as big as most because he came through the academy, and you don't quite upgrade him in the same level.
Richarlison,
decent chance for Tottenham. Richarlison nearly with a flying header. But because of some of their players coming through the academy, it means that when they sell them on, they're classed as pure profit. So to balance the books out, that Mason Mount Man United transfer has a bigger impact on them than probably signing Caicedo does, because Caicedo will be on less, or in fact he'll probably be on a bit more wages. But this is what I'm saying. Given the fact that they're doing those longer deals and they're doing it more on incentives of getting the club back into the Champions League, he probably won't be on much more. And because he's classed as a club asset still, so right now on their books, he's still classed as being worth probably what they signed him for. So it doesn't actually make that much of a difference in terms of financial fair play. Whereas the Mount being sold one is just pure profit going back into their books, which allows them to make the initial.
It's the way they're structuring the contracts is extremely American. I mean, you see it a lot in the NFL where, say for example, Patrick Mahomes, who is considered the best player in the league, a few years ago he was given a 10-year contract worth $500 million. So he was given the biggest sports contract in the world ever. But then once you actually kind of broke down the contract and looked at it, you realize there was a lot of incentive-based bonuses, and as well it was very much backloaded. So that teams do that, especially in NFL, because obviously they have a very hard salary cap in NFL and stuff. They backload the contracts in the hopes that when you kind of get to there, either the salary cap will be higher so you can afford it, or you can actually restructure the contract with that player so that you can kind of, it's almost as if you're kind of dangling the carrot in front of the donkey saying, look, it's here, but actually they'll never get there. And a lot of these players kind of seem to take it because ultimately when there's a salary cap, and I know the Premier League's different, they kind of do it because it allows the team to build around them. So, you know, somebody like Patrick Mahomes could go in and take the ridiculous amount of money that he wants because he is the best player in the league. But then because of the salary cap, the Kansas City Chiefs would not be able to build the players around him. So it seems to me that Chelsea are doing a similar sort of thing with their players where they're saying, right, okay, we'll give you this contract. It's incentive-based, so X, Y, and Z. But if you take it, it gives us the free cash to go and sign Caicedo. So they could have said that to Enzo and said, right, take it now. Come the summer, we'll go out, and obviously they won't have said Caicedo, but we'll go out and sign you another couple of midfield partners, and we'll sign you some defenders to sit behind you, and this, that, and the other. So,
and that kind of guarantees that success is going to come then if they've kind of agreed that during the negotiations with the players. Now, 100%. I just think it's a bit of a strange way to do things. It's more so, it's a huge risk, and for a club like Chelsea, it's not really a risk that needs to be taken, in my opinion.
It's an unorthodox way of doing things, isn't it? And as you say, it is a big risk.
Well, like Josh said, it's a very American way of doing things, and I think it's the first time we've really seen someone go all out with that in the Premier League. Like, there's been the odd signing like that where it's been on a long contract and it's kind of gambling on the future a little bit, but the amount that Chelsea have done this summer is probably more than any Premier League team I can remember ever doing in one window in terms of players exiting and incomings.
I don't know how true it is. You might have to fact check it, but I'm sure that there was some sort of stipulation in the sale of Chelsea as well, where Abramovich said that because obviously Chelsea were in debt to Abramovich by a couple of billion. So I think he said that he would wipe that debt if whoever came in as the new owners spent X amount on the club every year. Wow. So I think there was some sort of stipulation in there for the sale of Chelsea where they had to spend X amount to keep Chelsea where they are.
He left him in a good place, really.
Yeah, he did.
But I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, we'll see. But I mean, you look at someone like City, for example, they've obviously got those charges hanging over them. But actually, that's not come about until like 10 years later. So I think
nothing happens quickly, does it?
That's what I mean. It just takes forever.
Something like this, I don't think there's going to be anything coming up for a long time.
That's why we're seeing such an increase in how they're doing it and how they're going about it. They're getting it done quickly because of that fact that it takes time for these things to come to light or just be dragged through. So why not just fill your boots whilst you can and get it done? From an outside perspective, it looks shit, but it's going back to, if you're a Chelsea fan, you're not going to complain, are you? You're getting players in, you're offloading the dead wood. Why not? Happy days.
And I think FFP is this thing that's floated around that nobody actually really fucking understands what it is.
It just gets
I'm here trying to explain the club
constantly
how it works in terms of contracts and transfer fees and club assets and stuff. It's a really complicated thing to understand.
There'll be a lot more to it than we know.
Personally, I don't think the clubs quite understand it.
Is that a corner?
I don't think UEFA understand it, and I don't think anybody really understands the rules of FFP because it seems just so like inconsistent. Like I know United got a fine this summer for FFP. I think it was like 300 grand or something like that for some breaches that we had a few years ago. But then, like nothing's come of Chelsea yet, and you kind of go,
surely it's going to happen because Chelsea have recently been in trouble as well. That's what baffles me. Surely after the club being taken over, you would think we really want to avoid something like that happening again. But it's like you said, by the time they change the rules and Chelsea get in trouble, they've already made these signings. And if the gamble pays off, it doesn't matter. And if the gamble doesn't pay off, they're going to be in a sticky situation anyway, no matter what. So
I think the weird thing to look and the weird way of looking at it is actually not making European football has probably been a blessing in disguise for Chelsea because it's given them another year to get away with the procedure that they're doing it. I mean, I think they've offered Caicedo an 8-year contract as well because they can. Because, like you said, I think UEFA have changed it so you can only do a maximum of 5 years. So it now gives Chelsea that leeway. But I don't know if you saw like the thing on TalkSport where Simon Jordan was talking about it. And I can't remember the whole thing, but essentially what he was saying is that when you sell a player, that fee goes straight on your books. So say, for example, the sale of Koulibaly, you get 30 million straight on your books, but then when you buy a player, you can spread that. So actually the way that...
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, like they've done it over like 5 years for a lot of these transfers.
I think obviously now it's completely different now that they've brought in Lavia and Caicedo. But I think before the signings of those two, by his explanations, they were like 60... They were quite a lot in profit based on the sales and the way that they'd spread out the purchases. But what I don't quite understand about that is why that accounts. But because I don't believe that any football club actually has the money there to spend straight up. So I don't think United had 70 million just to give to Atalanta. So I think that every team is spreading them out.
Well, no, they probably would though. Surely, based on the year of TV money, etc.
Like say United, we're in about 300 million of debt just on outstanding transfer
It could
fees.
be like applying for a mortgage to look at what you bring in, and it goes on a bigger scale of like what you said, they're self-sustaining in a sense of the shirt sales, as general revenue like
Champions
that.
League this year as well.
It's like they look what money they could bring in, so you could be right in that front. I don't know though, but I'd probably agree with you. Surely a big team like that has got 70 million to give them for a player. But as you said, there is outstanding debt. But these outstanding debts,
they've already agreed to pay that.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't obviously there was that 70 million, but that's after we've spent 50, just under 50 for Onana, and then 60. So we spent just over 100 million before we've then spent another 70. That's what I mean.
I hear what you're saying.
I don't know, because obviously and why would you not spread it out either?
Kalana, mate, straight up. I've been impressed with, just going to the game, I've been quite impressed with Spurs. I know Man United were the dominating team in the first half, but this second half, they've actually looked quite good.
They've been better, haven't they?
Man United have not really created a good chance this half, have they?
From that one-on-one, well, barely even a one-on-one, they had a defender closing down on him, Bruno. He had to take the shot from probably further out than he'd liked to. The keeper's made some big saves, actually, and we did think he looked a bit flappy last week.
How are you feeling, Josh? Because obviously this is the second game of the season now. United probably haven't lived up to expectations again so far. Obviously, we've got 15 minutes left yet. A lot can happen, but how are you feeling about this game?
You need that striker to start that,
Yeah, we need Højlund in. I don't know. I think it's tough because, I mean, you look at last season, for example, we got battered by Brighton and Brentford the first 2 games of the season. Then we had Liverpool come to Old Trafford and we won. And that completely changed our season. So I think all we need is that game just to change our season again. It's clear that we're not quite cohesive yet. The signings that we've made haven't quite slotted in properly yet. Like, we've not been able to find how to properly take advantage of Mason Mount. And so I think it's going to be interesting to go through the season. I think
it takes time, these things, doesn't it? With new players to come in, you've got to click. I mean, you can't just drop a world class player into any team and expect him to do it straight away, with bar the exception of flipping Haaland, because he's just a freak of nature, obviously. But you do need the strike. That's the one thing that you look like you've missed, because when you were in control of the game, you didn't look like you had that man that could just pop up with it.
Tottenham through on the wing here with another decent opportunity by the looks of things.
Wasted.
Or cross.
Is that Perisic?
But yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like once United have a decent person as a number 9 up front, I just don't know if Højlund is that man. But we touched on that last week anyway.
We'll find out, won't we? Yeah. It goes back to how I see Leeds. I'm sorry to go back to Leeds. I know we're in Championship, but needs a proper striker, somebody that you know is going to get you X amount of goals.
Seems like there's a real lack of that in world football at the minute, though. There's only probably 10 up there that
it's
you
the
would
way
think,
the game's going, isn't it? Really.
Well, wingers have been a bigger concentration, haven't they, for the last?
I think that's just football as a whole, though, because I think when you boil football down to its core, it's about scoring goals. So that's why your strikers are always your goal scorers are always your money buys, because. And there's always going to be just a handful of strikers in world football that are the top, the very best at what they do. And I think, it's always a cycle. But I think I can't think of a time that I've followed football where I've gone, bloody hell, there's like 10, 15 strikers in world football that are unbelievable, top level. I don't know. I can't think of a time.
I think like late 90s, early 2000s, you had the likes of like Batistuta and, because when Italy was the big league in the 90s, they had some really good strikers, really, really top ones.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed to me when I was growing up and watching football, maybe more the specific striker position, like that number 9, centre forward was a bit more important in a team. Whereas now you've got like Liverpool, where most of the goals come from the wings. Obviously, you've got Núñez, who's probably going to come through and do good this season. But like Salah and Mane, or Salah and Diaz have always got a lot of the goals. You've got United, where the majority of goals have come from Rashford on the wing.
Look at City the other year. I know you got Gabriel Jesus, but they practically won the league without a main man leading the line, because they always swip and swap. I mean, they've got strength in depth, obviously, but that was an example. They won the league basically without the out and out striker. When obviously they got
and it goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of a lot of these wingers that are coming to the Premier League and not quite matching up to expectations. It's because the other ones in the league have set the expectations of scoring a lot of goals and getting a lot of assists. But that wasn't. I mean, obviously, there's always been good Premier League wingers. You look back at Robben and Ljungberg and Pires and Ronaldo, but there's definitely been, in my opinion, more of like a spreading of goals throughout the positions. Like Arsenal are the key one in those terms for me.
In the game, it's spread out goals. It's not just one man
like
leading
when
the
you're
line.
watching Arsenal, it could be Saka, could be Odegaard, could be Martinelli. But to be honest, you don't really think about who they've got up front most of the time.
No, I think it's modern day football now. Manager just requires each player to do more than one thing. Like, you can't just defend, you have to attack. You can't just attack, you have to defend.
You need to be able to do all aspects.
You need to do everything. Otherwise, you're not going to play. I mean, look at the goalkeeper situation now. De Gea was probably one of the best goalkeepers of the last 10 years, but he couldn't really play out from the back, could he?
It's the distribution, in it, and that's a key element.
I also think that it's sport in general, but obviously we're here for football. It's such a copycat thing. So everybody's kind of seen the success that Liverpool had with, obviously Firmino was their number 9, but he was more of a false 9 than anything.
Definitely.
He was the first defender of the team. That's what it was.
Then you look at City, where they did it for a long time. Fucking hell, Martial, I didn't think he was fit. Then you've got City, who did it for a couple of years without a number 9 once Aguero left, before Haaland came in. So I think kind of teams see that and go, oh, we can do that. I mean, I think United's a bad example, because like last year, for example, we didn't have a striker. We signed Weghorst on loan.
That was
That's what would you rate Weghorst's time at Man United out of 10?
In terms of football, it was about a 2. But do you know what? I actually liked Weghorst, because the guy he would die for the badge.
He did a
From
job.
The second
He did a job,
from the
didn't
second he came into the team, he loved being at United.
Fans get behind that as well, don't they? I mean, obviously, you've got to look at his footballing ability, and he didn't add an awful lot, but he did what he was required to do in a sense of he put himself about, and he did play for the badge.
As a United fan, if say for example we'd signed Højlund and then we'd signed Weghorst on a permanent deal, I wouldn't have been upset about it.
Oh, 2-0.
2-0 to Spurs there. Was that an own goal from the Butcher?
I don't think it's rolled through. So Davies,
Someone miskicked it, I think.
yeah, somehow it's trickled into the back of the net.
Switch to Josh right now.
Yeah, zoom in on Josh's face. I want to see, does Maddison get an assist for that?
Well, I must admit, at the start of this game, I would never have expected Tottenham to get somehow 2 goals. I know this one was a little bit luckier, but
Let's have a look at what happened.
watch the replay here.
It somehow just trickles in, doesn't it? It wasn't Maddison anywhere near it. He played the initial ball across. Did he even touch
so
it?
everyone just missed the ball effectively.
Let's have a look here.
See if the Butcher gets it.
Oh, it's the Butcher.
It's the Butcher with the own goal.
The Butcher. Jeez.
That's just poor all round, that, isn't it?
Oh, dear.
Really poor defending from United here. And I think, to be honest, it's been a second half that overall has been pretty atrocious. They've done nothing. Josh, what are you saying?
Sorry. Manchester United could win the Champions League this year. Josh got up. Sorry.
Stick a 5 on it, you heard it here first.
Clip it.
I've got a real tear in my eye right now. But more through joy than sadness.
This is why you got to score when you're on top, aren't you? Because second half Spurs have actually been good. And we was touching on Spurs before the game, weren't we? What do they offer? And you don't really think much of them, but they've got a good manager behind them, and they've looked like they've played some decent football in the second half.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if when you lose a big player like that, it can actually unify the dressing room a little bit more.
There's a lot of players that could be in that dressing room thinking, well, this is my time. I could definitely step up and then put your own staple on it.
Yeah, it certainly could be their time to shine, couldn't it?
Yeah, like Maddison coming as well. I mean, he'd have been ecstatic to play with Harry Kane, but he's obviously gone to Bayern. But he could look at this now and be like, I could push this team forward when everybody else thinks we're going to falter. So, there you go, Martial coming on.
Martial, do you think he's cut out for the Premier League still?
No.
Not at all.
No, do you know what? Ability-wise, he is. I think when he plays, in the last couple of seasons he has struggled, but I think it's just because of that inconsistency in playing time. But I think, you look at him, he does have the ability to play, he just can't stay fit.
It looks like he's always carrying a knock or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it boils down to, is I think that unfortunately he's never fit for long enough to really kind of show that he can do it. So I think, I don't know. I'd keep him as a backup number 9. I think he'd be good for that because there's less pressure on him to stay fit with Højlund in that starting role. But as you start in number 9, it's a bit like Reece James. Unfortunately, you can't bank on him to play 30, 40, 50 games.
He's already injured, isn't he? He's just been handed captaincy. I saw something. It was like obviously a joke tweet. They announced that Reece James was a new captain of Chelsea, and someone said, "Oh, the vice captain's got a right job on his hands." And they went wrong. We played one game, and he's already got a hamstring scare, I think.
It's often it's a bit sad when I see players like that. That you think could be a.
It's like when De Bruyne went off in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
You just kind of think, well, you just want the best players to play in the biggest games.
I think it's the English players as well, especially the English youngsters. I really want them all to flourish. Just being, you want all the English players to do well because they can bring it into the team.
Yeah, 100%. But United this game I'm shocked.
The first half,
I said 2-0 to United was my prediction before this game.
2-1. That one's gone.
Obviously, we still got probably 10 minutes left when you account for the new added time.
There was only 3 minutes added in first half, though. Weirdly enough.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of subs this half and stuff as well. Hasn't there?
Well, there's always going to be more in there.
Won't there?
Yeah, you'd think so. That'd be like the new normal, really.
United here towards the box. Not much going on there. Half chance here. Is
there's
that
nobody there, even gambling on it or attacking? That's
you need someone to at least be on the end of that, don't you? Or at least attacking it.
Putting a good little bit of pressure on now, but is it too little, too late?
This is the thing. United are going to have to really go for this game now to try and get anything out of it. I think it's probably
it's a stretch, isn't it?
Too little, too late.
I think so.
I think just you've got to at least fucking die trying, haven't you?
I mean, that's a good thing about Premier League. They'll always try right to the end. You get your money's worth, don't you?
Yeah.
Always do.
Yeah, it's crazy how far the Premier League's come in terms of, like, we were mentioning earlier about there being a lot of other big teams that are coming through, like Newcastle and Man City have really built themselves up. And then you've got Brighton and Villa.
On it, haven't they?
You've got Brighton and Villa who have done really well as well in the last few years. But when you compare that to the development of a lot of the other leagues, for example, the Spanish league, like really other than Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Did you ever see that clip? I think it was on BT Sport during the Champions League last year. I can't remember who it was, but he was basically saying that the money in the Premier League, like, it's not fair and they should spread it out to
between international leagues,
other European leagues.
I heard something like that.
I can't remember who it was exactly. I'll find it out.
Even who was it? Was it Xavi? You know, the Barcelona manager. He just says, look, we just can't compete. The league is just not as good a league. He even said it, I think, in a press conference.
No,
last
he did
week.
recently. Yeah.
So it is. I'm not saying it's a poor league, but the Premier League is just too strong now.
It's far too superior. Yeah.
I think they've done, like, in comparison to a lot of other leagues, they've done a great job of marketing themselves internationally. Like in terms of, like, the other markets, like the Asian market, and even like in places like Australia and stuff. How often do you think you see a AC Inter Milan fan who 20 years ago were two of the biggest clubs in the world? Yeah. Now everyone's probably going to be picking a Premier League team to support out the unless they have multiple teams.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think that's right. I mean, when we were growing up and we first started getting into football, the Serie A was just so prominent.
Oh, mate, the Italian league was probably better than the Premier League for a period.
It was so prominent, man.
The thing is, I think that there's a lot of crybaby stuff going on around Europe with the other leagues where, like you say, like, a lot of leagues have had the dominance. So the Serie A had their dominance. La Liga had their dominance for a long time, especially when those prime Messi, Ronaldo years where Barca or Madrid were winning the Champions League.
That Barca team and Real Madrid team
every year, like it was just constantly going on. And now the Premier, and obviously the Premier League was always winning every now and again, but now the Premier League seems to finally have they're the top dog. This is it. We're here now.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of spitting the dummy out about it, saying, "Oh, it's not fair. They've got all the money." But at one point, you know, Madrid were just buying everyone. You know. And Barca were buying everyone. And I mean, Barca's financial situation is nothing but their own wrongdoing.
Shocking, yeah. Spending
a shitload of money on Coutinho, on Dembele, on players that weren't able to kind of live up to it.
Yeah, I suppose.
So I think that there's a bit of crybaby stuff going on now where it's like, oh, it's not fair. But actually, you know, like you say, like the Premier League has marketed themselves well. And you've got the big teams that always go on international tour. You know, Arsenal, United, and a few other teams went to America this year. I know, like last summer, they were in Asia, like United and Liverpool played in a pre-season game. So I think doing that sort of stuff, because, like, I mean, especially like United, for example, we've always had a big following in the likes of Asia. But to kind of go and play there allows the fans an opportunity to see players that they probably would never have seen before. And even, like, not even necessarily the players, but just see United, just to say, oh, I've been to watch Man United live.
They don't get the chance, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a fan of that team, you want the opportunity to see those. Yeah, so we've got effectively another 10 minutes. Of the game.
You were right, yeah.
Yeah, I knew it'd be a long one, but maybe not 9 minutes. Yeah. To be honest, I don't really see United getting back into this at all, unless they manage to grab a couple quick ones. But
I've seen stranger things.
Yeah, I never count it out in football. Like until the last 3 minutes, I won't say.
But just going off the game and how it's been, especially for the last bit of this second half, you can't really see it happening, can you?
Nah, but going back to what you were saying, Josh, I think it's a tough one because a lot of these teams, like Real Madrid and Barcelona, maybe not the Italian teams as much, but they do try go on those international tours and stuff. I think that the issue with those leagues is the teams below the top two haven't been built up as much as they should have been. Like, you know, now if you go to a lot of countries, they will start, like, obviously they know who Man City are now, but 10 years ago they might not have done. No. And now it'll be a case of within a couple of years, everyone will know who Newcastle is. Everyone will probably know who Villa are as well, given the players that they're signing and what they're doing. So you're going to start to see that more and more. But do you think a lot of people know who Sevilla are or know who Atalanta are? I don't think it matches up quite the same.
So I think with the addition of the Europa Conference, that allows these smaller teams. But I think, I mean, I don't know about the other European leagues, but say La Liga, for example, the way that they structured their TV rights and everything like that was the big teams got bigger percentages.
Yeah.
Whereas, like with the Premier League, for example, you see...
Oh, good turn.
You see the small teams on TV all the time. Like there are some 12:30 kickoffs where it's like shit football. Like last night, for example, it was Forest versus
Wasn't
Sheffield
even
United.
televised.
And stuff. And it's starting to, like, the small teams are at least on TV a lot more consistently than I think, you know, a lot of the other smaller La Liga sides are.
When we 3 years in the Prem, we had a lot on Sky.
Oh yeah, I think we were like the 10th most televised team.
Yeah, I mean, especially Championship.
When we say we were talking about Leeds, by the way.
Yeah, it's a lot of exposure for, as you said, the smaller clubs. But I just think it goes down to the Premier League being as big as it is now. You're going to notice even the small. I don't really mean smaller, but the lower teams, like even your Villas and your Brightons, if people are religiously following the league because it is the best league in the world, then you're going to notice more stuff like that. Like, none of us follow the other leagues. I check the other leagues every now and then, don't get me wrong, because I like to see the standings. I like to see if Dortmund are maybe going to pit Bayern
like last season
and stuff like that.
Last season, I was checking it a bit towards the end when Dortmund looked like they might win the league.
It just went down to the last game, didn't it?
I remember a few years ago, I went over to Berlin and I went to a Hertha Berlin game. This must have been in like 2018, 2019. And not Hertha Berlin, Union Berlin, sorry. So I went to a Union Berlin game and it cost me like a tenner for the ticket, and they were in Bundesliga 2 at that point when I went to see them. And then they finished in the Champions League spots last year. I think they finished 3rd in the Bundesliga or 4th.
They had a good running Conference League, I think, as well.
Yeah, they've literally, I saw a picture on Twitter of Union Berlin shirts where a person had bought them every year, you know, with the different arm patch you can get.
Yeah.
And every year it had gone up. It went Bundesliga 2, Bundesliga, UEFA Conference, Europa League, and then Champions League. Imagine being a fan of that club. And when I went, like, the atmosphere around the stadium, it was really cheap for a beer, really cheap for a hot dog, and I was like, yeah, I'm glad to see that they're going up there.
Yeah. I think that's why the Prem, outside of obviously the big teams in the Prem, there always seems to be a bit of a story with the Prem. So this year, I think it's Luton. Their climb from non-league football all the way to the top. You know, I mean, we're talking a few years ago now, but obviously Leicester won the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's rare that you see, I mean, especially in La Liga, when was the last time that it wasn't Barca, Real or Atletico that won La Liga? Like, I don't know.
I think it was like Valencia, was it, under Benitez?
Yeah, mate, that's a while back now, though.
That was like early 2000s, wasn't it?
Yeah. So there you go. That's 20 years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen.
Oh no, Atletico have won it a couple of times.
Yeah, but I'd class them as like one of the big 3 really over there still. It's them 3, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Like Atletico, I feel like they haven't been as prominent in recent years, but at the same time they have. They've still always done well in the European competition and in the league, so it's not really a fair thing to say.
It's not really like Champions League finals like they made. I think, what is it, Simeone, he said, I'd have X amount of Champions League titles if it wasn't for Cristiano Ronaldo.
That's true,
Yeah, do you know what? That is fact.
It must be frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think the thing in Spain, Barcelona had that period of being incredible, and then it just went straight to Real Madrid, and like Real Madrid were good in that period as well. It's not like they were bad, but it went from Barcelona domination to Real Madrid winning. Was it 2 or 3 Champions Leagues in a row? 3.
Yeah.
So how can you compete with that? Like, really, how can you compete with that?
Oh, he's wild, that 3 in a row. God.
I really like the way that a lot of the German clubs around though. Like I've been to lots of games around the world. Like that, I think it has to be 51% owned by the fans at every club, and I really like that idea. Like going back to what we were saying about Newcastle, that means that no matter what, the fans have a real big impact on the club. Yeah, like what they're going to do in terms of signings, where they're going to allocate the money for the stadium, for the match day experience and stuff. Because one thing I will give a lot of these new Premier League owners is, like, especially looking at City, the infrastructure around the stadium and like the money it'll generate for the city is a lot. Like the amount of money that the Man City game day will make now compared to what it would have made 10 years ago for local businesses and even the businesses that they've set up, it is quite a lot.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. Like, I've seen an interview with the Manchester City mayor, because he was being interviewed about it, and apparently the owners of Man City have done a lot of investing, not just obviously in the club, but also in Manchester as a whole. They've put a lot of money into Manchester in terms of businesses and developments and that sort of stuff, buying properties, developing them, this, that and the other. So, because they were asking him and they were putting him in a bit of a situation, because obviously Middle Eastern ownership, this, that and the other, and he was kind of saying, look, that I can't really fault them, because I'm speaking from a Manchester perspective, and as the mayor of Manchester, they've done a massive service to me in my job and the city that I'm the mayor of. So,
well, I think I experienced it. I've been to the Etihad a few times just for football games because I love football.
Easy to get a ticket.
Yeah, it's really close chance there from United.
Did it? Oh, was it?
He tipped it onto the bar, I think.
Varane.
Keeper,
I
mate.
don't think so.
Varane nearly with the header.
I felt like he got a touch on
Man,
it.
yeah,
Looked
there's been a
like-
lot of woodwork hits this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's offside anyway.
Yeah, got flagged. Oh, yeah, just straight woodwork, that one. It's a good ball in, but straight off, didn't it? Let's have a look.
But yeah, I think the
No,
Etihad,
sure, he got a touch on that.
Yeah, he did.
obviously the Etihad was built to, I think it was for the Commonwealth Games
Games,
originally. But I've been there a few times for football, but I've also been there for like concerts and stuff. I went to see The Weeknd there last year. But as you said, for the city of Manchester, I'd imagine it brings in a lot more than is you probably think about in terms of the negative effects of having that type of ownership.
I mean, I understand why they do it, but I've always somewhat disagreed. So I went to see Coldplay at the Etihad this year, and I don't like the idea of, like Tottenham do it a lot, where they do concerts and this.
Yeah,
and
they do it at
NFL
Anfield
games
I
as
think
well.
a football stadium should be a football stadium. Personally,
Yeah.
I think
Rather than a sports or event arena or something
yeah,
like that.
It's
and I mean, even if it's just like, okay, the NFL, I can somewhat understand that they're trying to grow another sport in the country. At least it's another sport.
At least it's a sport, though, yeah. I get
But
what
when
you're
they're
saying.
completely changing it from a football stadium to become a concert arena, that I'm a bit like, I'm not sure.
No,
about
I
that.
completely disagree with that. I mean, I really
Utilise the space.
Yeah, no. There's not many other spaces, especially in the centre of these cities, where they could have a big band on.
Not everyone has a big arena like Leeds. Like,
Yeah.
there's plenty of other cities that do, but I'm just using that as an
But
example.
like I saw the Killers in the Doncaster Stadium last year. When would the Killers play in Doncaster if it wasn't for a football stadium? Do you know what I mean?
I understand why they do it from both perspectives. So from the band's perspective, it allows them to get into markets that previously they
But you
weren't
see it
able
as
to.
like this magical
Yeah,
football
And
stadium.
So, say for example, Old Trafford was used for. I don't know if I would like that, because Old Trafford is, for me, Old Trafford is Old Trafford. That's where Man United play. That is United's home. The only people that should be kind of going there are either United fans or the away fans.
What do you think about rugby being played there then? Other sports?
Again,
yeah, you
like
said
I
you were
said,
alright
like
with sports,
with
weren't
the
you?
sports, it's a bit different. Again, I'd probably prefer not to.
Right.
But at least it's a sport playing in a sports stadium. Whereas, like, when it's just completely changing it, I don't know.
I know what you mean. It takes away some of the magic of the ground and the stadium, doesn't it?
So Richarlison's having a good time on bench, isn't he?
Fucking big nose prick.
He's such a dick, isn't he? Hate him.
Size of that nose, actually. Bloody hell.
Whoa. Let's not target Rich Allison's nose. But ending the stream, we just abusing Rich Allison. Well, the game's just ended. 2-0 to Tottenham. I don't think it's a result that in fact, we all gave our predictions at the start of the game, and none of them was to having Tottenham winning the
All in
game.
Man United
What were your
favour.
thoughts on that, Simon?
I thought overall it was a poorish game, but I thought Tottenham played a lot better in the second half, and I think they deserved to win. I think probably man of the match was probably their goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So
Made some good saves,
Yeah.
didn't he?
Their goalkeeper, who's been questioned massively, not only by us, but by the football world in general. Josh, what are you saying?
Fucking bag of shit.
Not happy?
No.
Would you like? It's the first two games have gone real bad. What needs to change?
Do you know?
Just a striker coming in, or
It's weird because, so this one I think we probably deserve to win. The Wolves game we deserved to lose. I think we played well in this game. We just needed. I think if we'd have had a striker in there, it would have been a different story.
someone who can put it in the
We've
net?
missed. There was a Bruno chance that was missed. I think that was also a Stonewall penalty.
Yeah, definitely a penalty.
Yeah,
to
it
be
was.
fair.
If you give that penalty, it changes the game. You'd like to
They'd have
think.
been 1-0 up. So
You'd have liked to think that Fernandes would have put that at home 1-0 up. Whilst we're on top, it could have made it 2 or 3. I don't know. It's obvious that there's some work to be done with United. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I'm not happy.
In games with teams like this, the tide's going to turn. Like, one team's going to be on top than the other is. I think the main thing is you got to score when you're on top, man.
Yeah.
And Man United were for large portions of that first half, especially. And you've got to find a way to score, because then you look at it, you go into half time, you go into the interval, and the managers have got time to speak to the players. And then Spurs came out firing, and they looked really good in the second half. I was quite impressed with them, to be honest.
Yeah, they did. They were much better than I thought they'd be, 100%. And do you know what? I think I said this for Chelsea last week as well. My pre-game predictions, haven't been very good so far. I thought Chelsea would get smoked, and I thought Tottenham would get smoked today. But both times, I think maybe the impact of the manager, instead of looking at the team overall and how they're lining up, is seeming to mean a lot more.
That's the only way you can look at it at this stage of the season. You look at each starting 11 and you think which one is going to come out on top, but the teams are yet to identify themselves this early and how they're going to play. And I think Tottenham have made a bit of a statement in that second half that they're not going to be pushovers that everyone thought they would be without Harry Kane.
I don't know. I think as well. I mean, it's difficult because obviously Tottenham are now in a new era with no Kane and a new manager. But I think a lot because of last season's success at United, we seem to forget that this is only Ten Hag's second year in charge, and the team that he took over, that United was just shambles. You know, that Solskjaer, Ranić United was absolutely dreadful. It was an absolute shambles. So he came into a shambles and he massively overachieved last season, getting third and winning a trophy. So there is a lot of expectations, as there should be, not only as a United manager, but because of the season that he had last season, that a lot of times we kind of forget that this is only his second season in charge. He's still trying to build the team the way he wants it. So I think we are going to have days like this where we lose a game 2-0 to a Spurs team that we should have beat, or we go to Anfield and get slapped 7-0 like we did last season, in a game where the first half we went in 1-0 down, but we looked the better team in that game
you're
against
still in it.
Liverpool last year. So there are going to be games like this. As disappointing as it is, I think we sometimes forget, like, this is only his second season in charge. He's still trying to build the team. We still don't have a striker.
It's a long season as well, mate.
Oh, God,
So, I mean, it's, like we were worse off at this point last year and we still ended up all right.
Yeah.
So, you know, you never know.
Yeah, it's too early to judge the whole season yet, but it's just a little bit of a worrying
But
start.
my concern is obviously a lot of the other teams look good this year. You know, Chelsea look like they could be back this year. And, you know, Newcastle looked very good. We'll see how they do this evening. Arsenal looked decent. I know they only played Forest, but they looked all right. Liverpool got a good win today. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be a good season, but, yeah, I'm not happy with that.
Brighton, top of the league at the minute with +6 goal difference, 2 games, 2 wins. Liverpool sitting in the top 4. Obviously, Liverpool got a win today.
Yeah.
Are you happy with the start of the season so far?
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea game would have taken a point beforehand, to be honest. So I was quite pleased with that. We were due to win today. If we hadn't won today, it would have been a disaster. But I just think we need to get a defensive midfielder in a proper.
That everyone
one.
knows. That's
I
clearly.
think we will. I think we'll get someone else in, a bit more, a bit younger. So I think once we get that in, I think just confidence around the squad and the fan base. I think we'll do well. I think we will finish in the top 4 this season. I think.
Yeah.
We will.
Well, to be honest, we did our Premier League predictions last week, and I predicted Liverpool to come second. So I just think, given the extra Arsenal games and a lot of the other teams are in Europe now, Liverpool's squad for me says second.
Yeah, I think like I say, teams they need a strike, crying out for a strike. I think just defensive midfield, I think we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Well, it's going to be a good season, but that's it for today. Thanks for watching the stream. Peace, people.
Cheers.